Greetings, everyone, and welcome to GameFace episode. Let me get my mic a little closer here. GameFace episode 394 on SIFTD Games at SIFTD.net. I'm Shane Satterfield, your humble host for the next couple hours of awesome video game podcasts. As always, alongside me to do that is Matt Keil. What's up, Matt?
Kind of warm.
Yeah, it hasn't. So just so you guys know, the way LA works is if you're by the ocean, it's way cooler. So I got in my car today, it was 64 in my place. I got to Matt's, it was 75, and that's what, like 7 miles maybe?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not hot compared to the rest of the
Yeah. But I'm sure everyone's sitting there right now is like, oh, poor you, 76. I'm just explaining how drastically the temperature changes in just a few miles here. It's really bizarre.
Layer, Matt. That's why San Francisco is so cold.
Yeah, that's true. And then another thing about this cool about LA is you can drive an hour. You can be surfing at the beach, get in your car, and drive an hour and snowboard at Big Bear.
Well, that would be a very good day, traffic-wise.
It would be, you're right. But technically, you could
do
it.
Maybe Kiefer Sutherland could do that.
That's a good point. Anyway, just the crazy weather.
Yes, you could go from surfing to like desert dune buggying to snowboarding in one day if you really pushed yourself.
Yeah, it's crazy. Only California can do that. It has microclimates like that. Only place in the world where you can do that, actually.
I think the only kind of terrain you can't find in California is tundra.
Yeah, the frozen tundra.
Permafrost.
Yeah,
Not,
but if you go to like Big Bear in the middle of the winter, it feels like the tundra.
I mean, yeah, you're close enough.
It's because you're up on a mountain. Anyway, hope you guys are doing good. Hope you're having a good week full of awesome games, and hopefully you guys are enjoying your summer. We are in the heart of summer right now, which means there usually aren't a lot of games coming out, and that's kind of true, Matt.
I mean, yeah.
We've been working for it here.
I mean, last week you said the front of June was loaded.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what you're talking. I mean, there are things coming out, but not things I want to play.
Yeah.
Like,
some of the stuff I think is a little better than I expected. Some worse, but that's kind of the way it always goes.
Not this week.
No. We're working for it, people. Typically, the summertime is slow anyway. Like, our metrics are always down in the summertime. As far as
the day, too. I mean, it felt like for a while that problem solved itself in the release schedule. But there's nothing,
Yeah.
It's not much of a year.
This is the last month of our summer of discontent. It gets better next month, obviously.
Sorta.
Star Wars Outlaws coming.
Late next month.
Big time, late next month.
Basically September. I mean, come on. It's the last 4 days of the month.
August is pretty good. It's not that bad. Well, one of the Game of the Year contenders, obviously.
Right, but that's like it's September. It's Labor Day weekend.
You're right. That is the 30th.
Everything's at the last few days of August.
I'm actually glad that we're tight with Ubisoft because I'll be going home again for Labor Day like I always do. And hopefully we'll get code early enough that we can talk about that before I leave.
On their embargo.
Right. It's going to be tight. We'll see how it goes.
How confident are you, Ubisoft?
A couple things before we get going. There are changes coming to our Patreon soon. And really the good news is that like our patrons don't really need to worry about it. It won't affect any of you guys as far as like how your payments work. You will still be charged on the same day. You will still be charged the same amount. But one thing we're going to do, and we should have made this change a long time ago, is we're going to change our Patreon so that when people sign up, they pay right away. We're like the only Patreon left that still operates this way. I don't know why I haven't changed it. I keep waiting for like a beginning of the month to do it, and then stuff happens and it gets too crazy and I forget to make the switch. I'm making the switch for the beginning of August. So again, if you're an existing patron, it won't affect you at all. Your charges will go through the same amount, same time as it always does. It's only for new signups. And what really kind of kicked myself into gear for this was we got a bunch of new patrons for June because people wanted to check out our Not E3 coverage with Pactor and Marcus Beer. And then the night before the month turned over, pretty much every single one of those people dropped their pledge. So they basically just took our content for free for the whole month and then dropped the pledge before they paid. Anyway, we're changing that. That's not going to happen anymore going forward. So, and again, it's just falling in line with pretty much every other Patreon out there. And again, it doesn't affect people who are already supporting us. And if you're someone who is still on our very old now subscription system on SIFTD.net, won't affect you either. Your payments will keep going through, same amount, blah, blah, blah. So what I'm saying is, for most of you guys, it's not a change, but you are our patrons, and I feel like I should share, full transparency with you guys so you know what's going on. And some of you guys do drop your pledge and then come back a couple months later. Just so you know, when you come back, you'll be charged right away when you sign up for our Patreon, instead of waiting towards the end of the month and getting a free month of content before you actually have to pay. So just some changes coming. And then another thing I want to mention, usually this show is great as far as fact checking because you guys are awesome in our chat. And between Matt and I, we usually catch everything. But last week we did not catch something, and it was a mistake that I made. Matt, I said that the Switch was not doing that great in Japan. It is actually the best-selling console ever in Japan at just 32 million consoles. I couldn't believe it. I knew the number was around 30, 32. I had forgotten how horrible that market has done for literally decades. I went back and looked. The PS2, which you would assume did 50 or 60 million in Japan, did 12. None of the consoles back in the day in Japan, GameCube sold 5 or 6 million.
That's a smaller market.
Crazy, isn't it, to think? I just assumed PS2 had to have done way more than 32 million. No, in fact, it did not. In fact, the Switch is the best-selling console ever in Japan. So,
well, what did PS2 sell total worldwide? 100 and
a lot.
Something?
Yeah, I mean Europe and US just dominated.
Well,
it just dominated.
There's still a lot more people there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, anytime we make a mistake like that, we want to come on and correct it and make sure that we set the record straight. And that was the case last week. Thanks to a couple people who reached out to me on YouTube. The other part too is that the show went up on SIFTD and was up for 4 days before it was put on YouTube. Nobody on SIFTD either was hey, wait a minute. People on YouTube caught it and brought it to my attention. So anyway, we're very concerned about being accurate here. Editorial integrity is very important to us. We want to make sure if we make a mistake that we cop to it and we admit it, and that's what I'm doing here right now. So, yes, the Switch is the best-selling console ever in Japan, which is crazy, but it is. So, anyway, just
how
a little...
many people live in Japan?
I don't know, actually. I mean, it's smaller, obviously.
Yeah, it's the size of California. 32 million. I mean, there's a lot.
There's more than California, I think, in Japan.
Probably. I mean, California.
Because Tokyo alone.
California's got too many people in it anyway.
Isn't Tokyo alone 11 million or something? I thought
I think
it was
it's more than that.
It might be more.
The LA area is 13 million. I would imagine
is it?
Tokyo's more. The not county, but the LA metropolitan area,
gotcha.
including everything you think of as LA, is 13 million.
LA proper is 5,
proper's
right?
5 million.
Yeah, which is still insane. It's such a huge number. There are sometimes I think about SIFTD and I'm maybe I should just try to create LA's gaming website and take that local angle with it instead of what we've been doing.
125 million people in Japan.
Wow. Okay. Way bigger than I thought. Yeah. But not that many people buying consoles, at least historically. So Switch is actually, relatively speaking, doing very well there. And Cinetite says 125.1 million.
Tokyo has 37 million people in it.
37 million in Tokyo? I mean, it doesn't surprise me. If you ever go there and you go into a tall building and you look out, all you can see, as far as you can see, are concrete buildings and neon. The first time you go there, that is really mind-blowing. New York City, it's you go there, it's big. You go up in a big building, you look out, but you see here's Manhattan, and there's a bunch of water, and then you see kind of the other boroughs. In Tokyo...
Tokyo is the density of New York with the size of LA.
It's the density of Manhattan, size of LA. Maybe bigger than LA, actually.
It probably is, in terms of huge sprawl, and you have a mountain in it and stuff.
It's crazy.
No, and I remember going there and being oh, Akira, that part of Akira wasn't science fiction. That's just what Tokyo looks like. Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, before we get going, our show, our website, our everything, my pay, Matt's pay, everything is run by our Patreon at patreon.com/SIFTD. We are having a rash of people leaving our Patreon. I don't know what's going on. Obviously, some of it was people who joined for June to basically get our E3 coverage for free and then left. But it's not just that. We've lost people who have been, see that crawl down below right now? We've lost 6 or 7 people who have been pledging at that amount for years in the last month. You can go look at our Patreon. We're in deep crap, basically. And then I went and looked at other Patreons, and they're all down. Literally every major gaming Patreon is down. So I don't know if people are just man, this year has been terrible for games. I'm going to take a step back for a little while. Maybe I'll come back when things heat up. I don't know. But
how will you get all the latest on the free-to-play shovelware.
I mean, because maybe that's a big part of the problem. We'll talk about that in a little bit, is how the industry is shifting. And we're just not getting as many games, and it's not as many big sort of single-player experiences as we're used to. We'll talk about that in a little bit when we talk about another game that is one of those free-to-play kind of shovelware games. But anyway, again, we're supported 100% at Patreon. So if there's no money there, there's no money here. I'm just telling you guys, like, if you like the show, you got to support the show. We can't live for free here. We need to eat. We need to pay rent. We have bills, all that kind of stuff. We're just like you. Imagine if one day you just showed up for work and your paycheck was just chopped by a few $100s a month. Like, that's what we deal with regularly. You just watch your pay just go down. Usually you work somewhere, your pay at least slowly goes up. That's not really been the case for us at all. So anyway, if you like this show and you want to see it keep going, you got to support it. And either you support it at patreon.com/sifted, or you help us out with Twitch Prime. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, you can do that, learn how to do that down below. If you are a patron or a subscriber or whatever, please go do that as well. I get a full list of all the people who are pledging with Twitch Prime. And a lot of our stalwarts, the people who have been with us since we launched, have stopped doing it. Like, I can see, because it shows your streak, and almost all you guys are at 1. Like, no streak at all. And that's hurting us too. So just putting it out there, man. We need help financially. I understand everyone has their own financial concerns. I'm not asking you to go out of your way to help us if you can't. But if you're one of the people who's doing well with disposable income, we'd really appreciate it if you could help us out. And again, if not with money, then you can still review the show. Just leave comments about the show. If you're listening on Spotify, like it, leave comments about it. All that stuff helps, and it all makes a difference. You don't have to spend money to help us, although that stuff does help us pay our bills. So just putting it out there. Things are tough for us right now, and it seems like things are tough for a lot of Patreons, gaming Patreons. Some of the bigger boys have lost way more than we have, as far as like percentage lost. I don't know. It feels like there's some kind of a shift going on here. I don't know what's happening, but it's a little bizarre. So anyway, with that out of the way, we're ready to get on with our housekeeping for episode 394. We're going to start things off talking about sales and how things are going in the industry right now. We just got the MPD report for May of 2024, and they're getting a little late with putting that out now. I mean, it used to be like you'd be 2 weeks into the next month, and they put out the report for the prior month. This came out like a month and a week after May had ended, which is a little weird. I don't know what's going on over there. I know Pachter doesn't pay for their reports anymore, so I don't know if maybe that's happened with other people. But we did get finally the sales number for May, and they are very grim, with a couple exceptions. And the big exception is that Ghost of Tsushima for PC was the top-selling game in May, in all of May. And I mean, first of all, if you're PlayStation, you got to be like, all right. Seriously, you got to be like, we really screwed the pooch by not putting out games for PC for a long time. You also have to wonder, too, how well it would sell if it only came out like 18 months after the PlayStation version came out. Instead of, this is what, 4 years? Is that right?
That's right.
Or roughly?
Yeah.
Yeah, around there.
Summer 2020.
Yeah. And it still sold very well. The other thing, too, is seeing PC games on the MPD report. That is something that is kind of new. You don't see that very often anymore. But Ghost of Tsushima is the top-selling game of May, and look, deservedly so. It's an amazing game. I'm glad a whole new market gets to play it. The rest of the top 10, Matt, were all games that were old. Like, none of the games that had come out in May even, like, made a scratch on the chart. The top 10 were all, like, the Grand Theft Autos, the EA Sports FC, the Madden NFL, all that crap, basically, were made out the top 10 for May. What does this tell you, Matt?
Nothing's coming out.
Yeah, that's a big that people are excited by.
Ghost of Tsushima is one of the only quote unquote new releases of May that I can remember.
May was rough. We had to really work for May.
Paper Mario that month too.
Yes, and it ended up being in like 8th or something like that. It debuted
again with Nintendo, you always have to wonder what with digital included that would be.
Right. Yeah, but yeah, it finished in like 8th. Like, it didn't even have a good showing at all. So I'm starting to wonder now if these remakes and remasters from Nintendo, if all of them are actually going to hit or not.
Well, you don't have to top the charts to be worth it. They don't cost that much, I wouldn't think.
I mean, I could tell just from the interest in last week's episode, both on site at sifted.net and on YouTube, that people don't care about Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. I mean, our comments on SIFTD.net for last week's episode may have been the least amount of comments we've ever had on an episode of GameFace. Ever. So people don't care about that game, that's for sure. They weren't tuning in for it. They didn't feel like watching it for that game. So I do wonder if, maybe it isn't a license to print money for Nintendo to keep re-releasing these things. I think some games, sure, but not all of them. I thought Super Mario RPG would do well, didn't you? Because there's a pretty big gap between, the original and the remake, the remaster, remake, whatever you want to call it.
There's, I think, I don't know, it might have been too long, might have been more of a, people have nostalgia for the original thing they played. They don't really care about something that updates it.
Yeah.
It can go a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, it's hard to tell a lot of times because we don't get to see the real data from, they're called Cicada now instead of MPD. We don't get to see the granular part of that. Like, they have the one guy that comes out and puts out basically what he wants to on his Twitter account, which is a little weird. That's kind of how they do things now, which I don't know why. So we don't really have the full picture. You're right. And there is a ton of different factors that could be affecting this stuff. Matt, maybe the biggest red flag of all from the May MPDs, though, is that first of all consoles, all three, dropped drastically in sales year over year for a total 40% drop in console revenue year over year. That's crazy. Especially when we just learned a few weeks ago that there are 49 million people who have yet to upgrade to PS5 from PS4.
The chat's saying that Paper Mario was number 2.
Was it? Paper Mario's number 2. Hellblade, that's what I'm thinking of. Hellblade, that's right. Yeah, I crossed the streams there. It was Hellblade I was thinking of. Hellblade, it doesn't have a physical version, but digital sales and Game Pass, apparently it was 12th on Game Pass for that month. 12th most played game on Game Pass the month it came out.
Interesting. That was also very under-marketed, I felt.
Oh, yeah.
I know it's not the biggest game in the world or anything, but it was most Microsoft, big quote-unquote releases get some billboards and some buses or bus wraps and some. I didn't see a single ad for that game.
You wonder when you don't sell something at retail, how do you manage the marketing for that product, It's a new conundrum.
That would probably be something you'd want to figure out alongside building the Game Pass infrastructure.
And you also had plenty of time to figure that out, by the way. This game was in development for 4 years. You knew it was going to be kind of one of the first big litmus tests other than Starfield for how Game Pass is going to perform with big first-party exclusives, so...
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like trying to speculate on what Microsoft's doing right now. It just feels like
it's almost impossible.
It feels like there's no bottom to it. It feels like if sometimes you play a game where you're supposed to jump from like pole to pole or high point to high point. And you're just I don't feel confident that the button press I'm about to make is going to do what I want it to do. That's how I feel trying to comment on Microsoft's strategy now. I'm just I feel like I'm missing so many pieces that I don't really even know what they're doing.
It's hard.
I don't have an idea. I don't even want to theorize on what their strategy is now because I just don't understand it.
They're also opaque. They don't give up any information that could help us sort of form any sort of ideas around how it's doing. So maybe that's by design.
Right, and the fact that it's suddenly out of nowhere Tango can get shut down and Arcane Austin can get shut down. You're like, okay, well, so at what point do all of a sudden one day they just be like, oh, Game Pass is a disaster, nothing has been working the way we wanted it to, everything sucks and we're all everything's shutting down, we're done. There's part of me that's that could happen it could happen right now. I don't know. I really don't know. Because as you say, they're so opaque and Phil is so willing to just sort of I hesitate
bumble along.
Well, I hesitate to use the word lie, but it's it's basically you gotta put up the front to for the confidence in the business and but then you just shut a fucking company down.
Yeah.
And it's
recent episode of Pactor Factor was asking...
It's like trying to walk across it's like walking across the thing in Indiana Jones' The Last Crusade spelling the name of God. You're just I don't know. Jehovah begins with an I, as far as I know. That's what Sean Connery told me, but who knows what Microsoft thinks it starts with,
Yeah. I mean, we just had a recent episode of Pactor Factor where somebody asked, should CEOs be going on podcasts and going on Twitter and talking to fans? And he's the only one that does that, Phil Spencer. And I do think a little bit of it is that he's constantly having to do damage control. He needs to go out and explain why they've done this, why they've done that. You never see Nintendo's president or PlayStation's president going on podcasts like GameFace or whatever it makes you wonder. I mean, I'm sure a little bit of it is he enjoys it, maybe.
Probably.
But that's not 100% why.
And I mean, if you're in third place, you kind of got to do the grassroots thing.
Yeah.
But, like,
yeah,
it also just sort of makes you more prominent as a target when you have to make, like, the shitty decisions.
They know exactly who to go to.
Yeah.
They know his Twitter account. They know he'll maybe reply to them.
Yeah, every time you make an unpopular decision, basically that podcast is going to feel like they can ask you, like, hey, come on, explain yourself. It's
they also just launched that official Xbox podcast like a month or two ago that he's been going on. And it's mostly just propaganda. If you watch it weekly, it's them just promoting whatever game came out on Xbox that week. Every once in a while, he rolls on there, though, and it's kind of his vehicle now to, like, go on. If he doesn't want to go on some other podcast, he just goes on there where, obviously, the environment is a lot more friendly. So, anyway, the 40% console drops year over year is huge. Again, they just talked about how 49 million people have yet to upgrade from PS4 to PS5. Why are they not upgrading? I mean, it's really getting kind of dire at this point.
Upgrading
to PS5.
Oh, well, because the price hasn't dropped.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Like, at this point, or maybe probably before, usually in previous generations, you'd have a point where you'd have this second wave of adopters because the hardware would drop in price and that would be affordable to a different audience, and then that's just not happening here. So I think you've just hit the point where you have found the ceiling. You have found the limit of, like, the number of people who will pay $500 for a video game console in 2023, 2024. And I don't see the price going down.
I don't either.
Anytime soon, so this just might be what you get.
I mean, they never did drop the price of PS4 either, but it was a little cheaper.
Yeah, and you could get different. I mean, it was just, even used PS5s still aren't that much cheaper.
Yeah, you're right.
And, like, that wasn't true of the PS4, especially once the Pro came out.
You could get a PS4 for like $200 once the Pro came out used. But
but, like, that still counts.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And it's just, like I said, and it's probably even easier to keep track of that kind of customer now because you have to have a PSN account.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's just, and also, I mean, there's diminishing returns in terms of, like, to understand why the PS5 version of things looks better, you kind of have to know a bit about it.
You always have a trained eye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, I can certainly see people who aren't super keen to spend $500 looking at their PS4 or their PS4 Pro and being like, this is fine. Mm-hmm. Like, as long as you can still play most of the stuff, this is fine.
Yeah.
I think the big thing is just that. Like, you can't drop the price any further because it costs so much to make the thing, and I don't think any further versions are going to drop the price. I think they're just going to be more. Mm-hmm. More and more, it looks like that's how they're going with it. Certainly how Microsoft is going with it. Maybe Sony could go somewhere different because they're the leader, but that's not how Sony plays the game.
Yeah. Once again, as luck would have it, we just put up an episode this morning of Pachter Factor for our patrons that is right on time with what's happening with this news. And the question that they ask him is, once consoles get to a point where they can display 4K, 120 frames a second with ray tracing on and everything, is there a point to ever buying another console?
I mean, if you want it to run better.
But saying 4K, 120 with ray tracing turned on, everything full bore. Like, once we get to that place, is there a reason for another console?
Well, there will have to be, because infinite growth myth.
Right, but I'm saying, like, realistically.
Well, realistically, that is never going to happen.
We'll never get the 4K 120?
No.
Really? How come?
Well, because the games will always be different, and
they'll just keep pushing the games,
pushing things up, pushing things further. Now you can, but the thing is, frame rate and resolution don't sell video games. Screenshots do.
Yeah.
Graphics do.
Yeah.
So you're just going to push that up. And yeah, there may be some point you hit some kind of flawless photorealism or whatever. But then there'll just be some new thing you're pursuing that, like, then becomes something that the consoles aren't designed to. The 3D revolution was sort of the same thing. It's like, oh, we perfected 2D, so now we're going to go this way. So I don't know. Like, and also I think we're several generations out from that anyway.
We're getting pretty close. So I watched, they put up like 20 minutes of gameplay from College Football 25 yesterday. And after work last night, I was sitting at home, like, just checking out stuff on YouTube or whatever, and I watched it. And there are moments in that game, Matt, where it looks photorealistic. It literally tricked me. I was like, one thing I noticed about that game too, and you guys should go watch it if you're even vaguely interested in the game or sports games or whatever, the head movement in the game is mind-blowing. Like, a running back is running down the field, and you watch him check, like, at all the dudes around him. Like, little stuff like that is what tricks your mind into thinking stuff is real. And there's like moments in the huddle where the quarterback, and I mean, it literally looks like it's just a game being filmed. And I don't say that lightly. So it's getting there. Like, we're inching ever closer. It seems like every 6 months.
It depends on what it is. It's like, yeah, like that game versus like say The Last of Us 3.
Yeah.
You know, like what's that gonna be? You know. But it is taking longer and longer. I mean, I certainly am looking at my 4090 right now and being like, when am I gonna need to upgrade this? Like, I mean, it runs everything pretty freaking well. Like, I don't know what, and I really don't see. The big thing is, I don't see a big upgrade in screen resolution coming in, and that's the thing that really drives performance down. I
don't think I'll ever buy an 8K TV unless I am in a situation where I need like a 100-inch TV.
Yeah, 100-inch TV. If you need a whole wall,
yeah, that's the only way where 8K matters. Yeah.
4K is already overdoing it for the distance most people sit from a TV.
I mean, I can watch YouTube, and I can watch our content. Most of our content there is 1080p, 60 frames a second. I can go watch something that's also running in 4K. It's really hard to tell the difference on my TV. And I have a 65-inch TV. I'm sitting 10 feet away from it or whatever. It's hard to tell. Like, there's no way my wife could ever tell. Ever. No. Trained eyes like ours, sure. Yeah, the average person? Probably not.
But I don't notice when things checkerboard usually, or like when things drop for whatever. And I can tell on my PC monitor because if I put something from 2K to 4K, I can tell. But it's because if I can look close, I can see that, like, you know, the downsampling looks better. Yeah. It's like, does it matter when I'm playing the game? No, not really. No. So like, why would I ever need I certainly never need a higher resolution monitor than what I have. I wouldn't mind a bigger TV just because of the size of the room it's in. Yeah. But like, big living room. I wouldn't go more than 4K with that. Like, what supports that? I'm not going to rebuy. There's nothing
to watch or play in 8K anyway.
Streaming services barely make 4K anyway.
Yeah, I don't think 8K is going to be a selling point for consoles going forward.
I mean, the TV companies already kind of tried that and it didn't work.
Well, they took it off the box of the PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
Because it was on there for the first 3 years. Everyone's like, where are the 8K games? And PlayStation's like, yeah, you're right. We should probably take that off the box. It's pretty funny.
But like, so I don't see that being a thing. Like, I think we've hit the resolution limit for the most part. And that's really what I mean, because you don't really think about it, but like every time you bump that resolution up, you're doubling or tripling.
Yeah, the pixels that need to be displayed.
And you know, 1080p to 4K is crazy jump.
It is
in processing power you need.
Yeah, it's 4 times. Yeah.
So like, really, you're just talking about things like that, like detail-oriented things, texture size, I guess. I mean, the PS5 is not really adequate for what they're trying to make it do in places in terms of performance.
Yeah.
They're lucky that people... It's weird how, like...
You're lucky to get 30
It's weird
frames.
how, like, casual people, don't seem to recognize when frame rate is bad down to 30 or under. But then they also don't notice that, like, the motion smoothing's on.
Right.
It's like...
that is the worst.
Just reverse how you view those two things, and we might all get along better?
Yeah. Let's see what you guys are saying about this stuff. This is a big deal, man. 40% year-over-year console drops. Also, if any of you guys have yet to upgrade from a PS4 or an Xbox One, in the chat, mention it. Why you have yet to upgrade. I'm sure there's some of you guys who still haven't done it. Let's see here. Vincent says, yes, and those are the only 20 minutes that will remotely look like that. I don't believe that, Vincent. They show a ton of just raw gameplay, but you can go look for yourself. I've been doing this for a pretty long time. I have a pretty keen eye for bull shots. And literally, there's 20 minutes of raw gameplay there. Silkshake says, I know lots of casuals who upgraded for the latest. I don't know what that means. Nolan Bozo Zone, I just got a 4070 Ti, no need for consoles.
Latest FIFA and COD. He hit return.
Oh, okay. I just got a 4070, and I still want my consoles. Bozo Zone. I don't know.
Well, I keep the consoles because of the exclusives. I mean, I don't want to wait 18 months to 4 years.
Well, you're lucky if it's only 18 months. Yeah. The Retro Modern Gamer says, in my opinion, the sweet spot for consoles do well at $300 or less per the 6th and 7th gen. 400 is pushing it for casuals, and 500 no way. I say anyone who buys Series X or PS5 are hardcore gamers. I think you're right. And I think we figured out how many of us there are. And there are 50 million of us, basically.
And honestly, that should be enough.
It should be. To run any business. Yeah.
Like, it's the infinite growth myth and the infinite progress myth that, like, kind of drives this weird things like down 40%. It's like, yeah, because you've sold PS5s to everyone who wants a PS5. Like, most companies would be pretty happy about that. If I sold 50 million of something, I'd be fine with it. But this has to just go up, 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 up. I guess the big litmus test will be GTA 6. Like, will GTA 6 force the hand of people who haven't bought a new console yet?
Yeah.
If that doesn't do it, nothing will.
Yeah.
At least once GTA 6 comes out and you see how that affects the adoption rate of the new generation consoles, you have your hard data.
That's the X factor right there. Yeah.
That's the vertical limit.
Yeah.
Like that's there's nothing else that would push people more to buy a new console.
GTA is it.
That's it.
Yeah. It's the last chance, really. Threadzilla, thank you for Twitch Prime, man. Silk Snake also says, is that because more people have wised up and wait for sales now?
Well, they'll be waiting forever then.
He may be talking about software, maybe.
No, he's talking about hardware.
There aren't any, though. That's the problem.
Because that comes right after console prices are too high. It's when we started talking about the 40% drop.
Gotcha. Daredevil619, man, welcome. And thanks for your first-time chat. Enjoy GameFace, and check out SIFTD.net if you got a minute. What else we got here? Let's talk about Paper Mario sales. Yeah. See if anybody chimed in about not upgrading yet. Vortex Complex, no PS5 or Xbox Series X. Price of entry too high for me. Okay. Silk Snake says he was talking about software. J.M. Rain says, is part of this because of cross-gen games? That's a good point.
Yeah.
Because we're still getting last-gen games. Like, they're still putting out stuff for last-gen.
I mean, the other thing aside from GTA 6 is when COD goes current gen only.
Mm-hmm. Which, again, it has not.
No.
It's still putting one foot in last gen. And a lot of the big third-party games still are doing that, unfortunately. Madden's still doing it. FIFA, EA Sports FC.
Unfortunately, because it's like, I've always said, like, why are you going to step away from this huge user base you've spent all these years creating? Especially when you're not benefiting from the hardware sale. If you're a third party, like FIFA I mean, I guess Activision isn't anymore, but like FIFA hasn't gone, current gen only, and like, or not FIFA, but like, EA Football Club now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, why would you freeze all those millions of people out of the money you wanted to make from them? Like, that doesn't make any sense anymore, especially not now.
EA Sports FC is the top selling game in Europe every month.
Yeah.
It may get knocked down to second for like a month if a big game comes out, but for the most part.
And people can, people on these podcasts can wring their hands about it's like, oh, but it could look so much better. It could be better next year. It's like, yeah, but it's not fucking mattering at the register, is it?
Yeah.
Like, as long as it's the top seller, no one cares. They just want to play football.
Yeah. Tiny blip in history says, lesson learned, always wait for the pro version. So some people are doing that as well. Yeah. Now that we know that there are these mid-cycle refreshes, they're like, I can hang on for a couple years.
Or like it happened once and everyone just, so far, like, there's no proof of the PS5 Pro.
No, it's just all rumors.
It's all rumors.
Yeah, I feel like we should have heard something by now, honestly.
Certainly if it was coming this year, you would think we would have heard something.
It's starting to look dicey. Mr. Lantern 7 says, I recently got a PS5. The Abram says, I have a PC and I'm not paying $500 for the new PS5 exclusives.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty common refrain outside of the people who just gotta have it now.
Yeah, I understand.
Speaking as someone who's gotta have it now.
I mean, I just built a new gaming PC, and if it was all I had, I would not be able to deal with it. I can just tell you that right now. Like, I've had it for 3 weeks. If that's all I had to play games on, I would be buying a console. So
to play what?
Console games, like console exclusives, for sure. Like, I couldn't have played Luigi's Mansion 2 HD if all I had was a PC. Like, I enjoy those games.
Having a Nintendo console has always been kind of a caveat.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
No matter what era of PC gamer you are, it's like, well, those are never coming.
They're never coming to PC. Yeah.
And a lot of times there's no actual equivalent. How many great 3D platformers are on PC?
Like none.
Almost nothing.
Yeah.
Unless you really like Ukulele.
Yeah, which I don't.
Who did? Yeah. We did.
And I'm a big 3D platformer fan. So anyway, things are not looking good in the games industry right now. I am starting to see, Matt, why the publishers started freaking out before we did. Because I think they could see this data behind the scenes that we weren't privy to, and now I can understand a little more why they were starting to cut jobs like 8 months ago when the industry was booming, and we're like, what are you doing? This seems insane. Turns out, maybe it wasn't so insane. But to your point, I do think Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be the grand litmus test. Like, if people don't upgrade for that, there's no upgrading. And then that's when we do see, for sure, that the console market is starting to shrink. And then you start to wonder, okay, does it keep shrinking? And then how long is it until it really is just 50 million consoles? Which still is a lot. If you think back to when you and I were into gaming in the SNES, the NES, the N64, the PlayStation 1, those eras, like, you sold 50 million consoles, you're doing damn good, but expectations, stockholders, all that stuff plays into that. You need that eternal
at some point
line upward.
At some point, shareholders are going to have to recognize that reality is a thing.
Yeah.
And having a reliable company that can produce a certain amount of income, a certain amount of revenue every year on a dependable basis is more important than having the magic bean every fucking time.
Or trying to act like you have the magic bean when in fact you do not.
Right.
And then it spikes, a couple people get rich, and then everybody else loses their ass.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of the stock market in a nutshell.
That's the grift, right?
Yeah, it is.
It happened with crypto. It happened with NFTs. It's happening right now with AI. And that's sort of... It is... I mean, the thing about it is, like, everybody makes fun of those things, and they should because they're stupid. But, like, they're just... They're tech bro losers recreating their own version of the environment that already exists in the mainstream economy. Like they're not really like grifting in a different way than the accepted Wall Street grift works. Yep. They're just doing it outside of that system.
Right.
And that's kind of the appeal.
They don't have to
them.
pay commissions on their grift.
Like they're like, we're a homegrown grift kind of thing. But like the same kind of scam is happening if you're playing the stock market most of the time. You know, that's definitely the same thing. And the AI thing is ridiculous. You know.
Yeah.
I saw was it The Onion? I can't remember who tweeted it, but it basically said Al Qaeda could rebrand themselves as AI Qaeda and get $2 billion in startup funding right now, and that's probably true.
Yeah.
And so what 2 people would get out rich, and everyone else would be left holding the bag.
Yeah.
And
which is
like
typically how it works.
And there's a point at which you're going to have to like learn, and shareholders are going to have to learn. It's like the magic carpet ride of like 90s tech, because there's still people still chasing that like Silicon Valley tech boom thing from the 97 era where they're like
that popped in 2000.
That was like, oh, I could become a billionaire overnight. That's what everybody wants, just keep going up. It's just like that's just not how anything works.
Yeah.
You want to know why so much conservative talk is about like having more kids and having more? It's not just because they want more conservative voters, because they need more consumers.
Yeah.
And like that's what some of these people are really concerned about. It's one of the underlying causes of all this is this idea that in 30 years there are not going to be enough people to create this kind of economy like manipulation and this infinite growth myth. And people are going to have to pull way back and have more realistic expectations. And you're already seeing the early signs of that here.
Interesting.
Especially when you consider like go back and like really and do the inflation calculation stuff. Consoles aren't that much more expensive now than
they're really not.
Back then. Like everything's cheaper.
They're actually crazy
remember,
cheap.
The average price of a Super Nintendo or Genesis game was $150 in today's money.
I mean, right. Games should be like $150 right now. Skateboarding is having the same problem, Matt. People are used to spending $50 for a skateboard deck. That price has not changed since 1984. And they're just like, they can't grow. They can't afford to pay their riders, their pro riders anymore. And all the kids are like, wait a minute, like, wait, blah, blah, blah. It's like, bro, like, you're spending the same for a deck right now as you did in 1984. And obviously the costs of manufacturing everything have gone up. That's just the way things work. So
it's like,
we're actually pretty lucky when you think about it.
Yeah, our friend, Jason Chung. Yeah, he messaged me the other day, and it was a picture of his daughters with this National Geographic book they wanted. He's like, one of the things I keep running into in my old age of our generation is that the kids want this thing, and I'm like, oh, that's great. That's probably what, like $5.99. He's like, this was $14.99 for a magazine about animals.
Yeah,
and I'm like, $14.99. We used to buy Dreamcast games for less than that when we first moved to LA. And I'm like, oh, when we first moved to LA, like $14.99 today is worth like $25. That's like it's like the equivalent of $25 today.
Yeah,
like $10 has magically appeared on the prices of things.
It's like everybody says,
years.
You walk out the door in LA, you spend $50.
Yeah, well, I mean that's just adulthood, right? Every few days you have to spend $30 for some reason.
Just to live. Yep.
You don't know why. You know what it is. Something. A couple days from now, you say, "Oh, I got $30."
Yeah.
But for what? I don't know. Like
I just walked out the door and I needed something that cost $30.
Needed something, or something broke, or I had to replace something, or just $30. Randomly, you're just gonna spend $30.
Yep. Adulting. So anyway, things are not looking good in a console space right now. I do hope as the year goes on and we start getting some of the bigger games of 2024, and 2025 is shaping up to be another banger. So if we can just kind of limp our way here for the next few months, I have a feeling things will start turning around.
Yeah. NES was $150 when average rent was like $400.
Right.
Think about that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, Atari 2600 was like $250.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, 3DO was like everyone said they're crazy because it was like $700.
Yeah. And they were.
They were crazy, of course, because there was no games on the fucking thing.
Yep. All right,
$599 That's $1,000 in today's money.
Yeah.
We paid $1,000 for the PS3.
I know.
We paid $1,000 for the PS3.
And I hardly used it. It was pretty much just for exclusives for me.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. I used it to play PS1 games and PS2 games now because I have the fat. I have the
relatives come over. I'll put in like Jeopardy into it's the old PS1 Jeopardy game, and it works. It's so funny.
It's like, how old is that trivia?
Yeah. It's like seriously. Yeah. You know every answer.
Yeah. Current events for 500, Alex. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, let's move on to our next topic of housekeeping. Last week we talked about Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, how it was crazy hard. Matt said it wasn't that it was that much harder. You need to relearn how to play it and approach the game. And we talked about how the Get Good crowd was like, wah, this is too hard. Well, we got another kind of twist of the knife this week, particularly for that group of people. When EA announced that Dragon Age the Veilguard, you can turn off deaths in Dragon Age the Veilguard. You can just set it up so that you never die. So how can EA do this and not break its game, but From Software, it breaks the game?
Because EA seems to recognize that it doesn't matter how other people play video games. Like, I don't care when anybody else does in Elden Ring.
Yeah.
Like, I get it if you're talking about, like, invading other people. Everybody's got to play on a level playing field and that kind of multiplayer thing. But if you're just playing the game, I don't give a shit. Like, who cares if someone can have a pause button?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't change anything. It's like, well, it's part of their... I don't give a shit.
I don't care.
Because you know what I do? I just go to a fucking campfire and go do whatever I need to do. It's basically a pause button in and of itself, except, like, who cares? Who cares?
Yeah.
I don't care if anyone plays Veilguard and turns the deaths off. I don't care.
I don't either. I think it's great. Like, I feel like every game should be like this. Like, everybody should be able to play every game if they want to.
Yeah.
Is that like a radical idea?
Yes, apparently it is.
I mean, and if you're the person or the company selling something, you should want as many people as possible to be able to have access to your product. I mean, I don't think From Software is on the stock market. They're owned by, what's that big conglomerate that owns them? Katakawa or something?
Katakawa, yeah. With the Phoenix.
Yeah. But I'm guessing they're on
a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I'm guessing they're on the market though. But From Software is such a small part of that, it can kind of operate and do things the way it wants to. A lot of other companies do not have that luxury. So if you're EA and you're releasing games and you're saying before the game even comes out, only 30% of the potential market will buy this game, that's not going to fly with your stockholders. They're going to be like, no, you need to make sure more people can play that game.
Because, you know, if this thing doesn't sell like 10 million copies, it's the end of BioWare.
Yeah. The end of BioWare and the end of probably Dragon Age and probably the end of you making single-player experiences. Like,
outside of Respawn.
Right. Yeah. So there's a lot riding on this game for EA.
Which is doubly weird because it's like the Jedi games prove that single-player experiences are fine. Single-player experiences are fine. They sell just fine. They sell
this
very
game's
well.
going to sell 10 to 15 million. I can pretty much guarantee it.
It better.
Provided they don't completely botch it. I mean, based upon what we've seen so far, I think they're on track.
I don't know. I don't even know how to predict what this game's going to be.
Yeah.
I don't know what
it's
been 10 years.
Yeah. It's like there's a whole generation.
It looks like it should work. It looks like it should be something people want. The fan base seems to be on board.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Silkshake says, my girlfriend was streaming Elden Ring. Oh, wow. She streams. That's awesome. Aladdin chat went insane how she was playing it and summoning her mimic psychos. Yeah, they're gatekeepers,
There's been kind of a thing where people are like, oh, like, well, the weirdos keep screaming about you can't use summoning, you can't use co-op, you can't use this sword, you can't use that armor, you can't. It's like, is this game actually hard, or are you guys just making it hard for yourselves at this point? Like, it becomes like this weird dick measuring. It's like, I'm sorry that the From Software games are the only life accomplishment you have to your name, but like some of us have things to do.
Yeah, it's like every once in a while, my wife will say to me, "You can't do that," and I'll just look at her and be like, "I can." I can do whatever I want, and you can't stop me. Like, you can't, no one can tell me that I can't do something. I can. I may get arrested for it. It may be a dumb idea. I can still do it. Like, nobody can tell me what I can and cannot do. It's free will. So, yeah, it's pretty pathetic that people would jump in on your girl's stream and give her crap for how she's playing it. Mighty Pony Girl says, I will say that a don't die option can be as bad. Try the Waylander on story mode. You were literally just a pea shooter the mob with our last dude. Yeah, I mean, look, there's games where if there's no death, you literally just walk through them and experience a story.
I would think it would be boring to some degree.
I don't want to do it, but I don't want to cut somebody else off from the game who does want to.
I don't care. There's a huge faction of the audience of Dragon Age, especially, that just wants to play this game to touch elf butts
and the
that's
lore
fine.
or whatever.
They don't want to worry about the game mechanics. They don't worry about the challenge. And look, like that first Dragon Age game is hard.
Yeah.
Like I played that game on easy, and I don't fucking care what anybody thinks. Because I didn't like the game at all, so I didn't care about mastering it. So I was like, I just want to get through this shit.
Yeah.
Thank you. If someone wants to just do that with this game, absolutely.
Yeah.
If you want to play it like a fucking movie, great. Do it. I don't care. What does it affect me for? It doesn't do anything to me.
Abrams says Dragon Age Inquisition sold 6 million, and that's the highest that the IP has done sales-wise.
Yeah.
I'm surprised to hear that. I thought it sold way better than that. Based upon the metrics on SIFTD, I would have assumed that it did better.
No, that is the highest selling BioWare RPG.
Really?
Dragon Age is the
more
biggest,
than any Mass Effect.
Way more. Dragon Age is their biggest IP.
I figured like Mass Effect 2 maybe might have sold more. Wow.
4.
But again, like if you go back and look at like the install base of Xbox 360, like it's smaller than what we're dealing with now. Well, maybe not with PS5, but it's smaller than the PS4's install base was. Faradol says a lot of Dragon Age fans don't play Dragon Age. Yeah. They just like the lore and the characters
and the porn.
Yeah, which is crazy.
It's a big factor with it's a different audience than what we know. But it's like the I was reminded this week of BioShock. That's BioShock Infinite's legacy. Is the actual breakthroughs in 3D animation tech were made to make porn of Elizabeth from BioShock Infinite. Do you know that?
I did not know that.
There are people who say there are people who have worked in Blender and stuff that say that Blender Animations went through tech innovations to make purely to make 3D porn of that character, to the point that it has been compared to the advent of color film. Like, there are things people innovated to do that in Blender that are used in Pixar productions now. Like,
that's insane.
Do not underestimate the power of large groups of nerds who want to see a video game character naked, because the Astarion people will eat your face.
The Abrams says, yeah, we owe a lot to Elizabeth.
Yes, it's true.
And the Surly Mexican...
It's extremely discomforting, but it is, in fact, the case.
Yeah. And the Surly Mexican says what I believe. If I pay for the game, I'll do what I want with it. Yeah.
And this just saves me the trouble of having to look up some kind of, like, trainer or something. Like, great, awesome, done. I don't care. I probably will not use the no death op. I found Inquisition to be a little sleepy in terms of difficulty. And that's fine.
I mean, they kind of overcompensated for the prior game.
Definitely. They swung away from that, and they should have. It's not a way to make. Yeah. Although I will say, I thought Baldur's Gate 3 was fucking difficult.
It was, yeah. There's parts of it that were hard.
I was a little. I mean, obviously you can tweak that pretty tremendously, so it doesn't really matter. But I was a little surprised at how hard the default was on that game.
Yeah, it's challenging. Solo Dolo 241 asks, "Is Veilguard full on single player, or are there co-op loot elements?" There are co-op and loot elements, but I believe you can also play it by yourself.
Yeah, it's full. It's single player.
Yeah,
the co-op, like, people can join your game and help, but it's not like,
You don't have to play with others.
Yeah.
Other humans.
And it doesn't matter. I mean, who cares if the person you're co-op... If you co-op with someone in this game, you probably know them. Mm-hmm. And so who cares if they're playing with no deaths?
Yeah. But that is a question, though. It's like, how do you decide if you're going to co-op with somebody, whether you play with deaths or not deaths? And
well, it's probably say on the join the game thing.
Yeah, you can filter that, would be my guess. Another thing, too, is that,
co-op, you don't want them to die. Like, who cares?
Another thing, too, is like somebody who maybe is playing on no deaths by themselves might feel a little more comfortable playing with deaths if they're playing with 3 friends, because presumably those friends can help them out.
And maybe, I don't know, who knows? Maybe you can choose whether you die or not in the same co-op game. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if that's a universal setting or if it's a per-player setting.
Yeah. But one thing to keep in mind is if you're somebody like me who does not like the Souls-like subgenre and you're interested in Dragon Age, fear not. Dragon Age will be for everybody. My guess is there will probably also be a really challenging difficulty setting for people who like the old Dragon Age games.
There'll probably be an Iron Man,
which is great. Again, make it so everybody can play it. I feel like everybody should be able to play every game if they want to.
Yeah. Also, like, do you really think this game's going to have a detailed enough combat system that's going to be worth struggling your way through? It's like, at least you can make that argument with the From games. It is like, well, if you master the combat system, which is very carefully designed, you will at least get to the point where you can get it's possible. Whereas sometimes some of these games are just like they're not worth that kind of mastery.
Well, your timing was impeccable. As soon as you mention it, basically the combat tutorial in this demo starts happening, and you can see now the combat is nothing like Dark Souls. It is just your typical hack and slash. Enemies don't even seem to be too much of damage.
This feels
sponges.
like a pretty natural progression from Inquisition.
Yeah.
And Inquisition's combat certainly wasn't anybody's favorite part of that game, so who cares?
Yeah, I don't think it's that big of a deal. So anyway, it does feel like the tide is starting to change towards making games accessible to pretty much everyone. I think that's a good thing, and hopefully that trend continues as we move on through this generation. Next up, so Matt, with this year this year with no big games, at least there were some at the beginning, but this middle section we're in right now has really been bereft of like big budget AAA games. A lot of smaller games have been very fortunate to kind of fill the void and do very well. Power World is one of them. Another one is a game called Manor Lords. It is this insane, like almost too detailed world building sim cross with a RTS. It's hard to explain, but it has become an absolute smash hit on Steam. It's only available for PC right now. Eventually it's coming to consoles. But the game was built by a very, very small team. And what has happened, which if you watch this trailer, it will blow your mind that it was made by like a handful of people. But anyway, that just shows you what you can do now with the tools and everything that are out there. But anyway, this game has been a smashing success. But because they're a small team, they have not been able to capitalize on it. They're basically like, we have enough people and resources to fix all the problems that you're finding, but we don't have enough to do that, plus start adding new content. And so people are furious at them, and they're angry. And the developers, finally, a developer has taken a stand, and it's just like, look, people, like, we're like a 10-man team.
What was the publisher?
It is the publisher who put the statement out. It's like, we have a 10-man team here working on this game. Like, y'all need to step back and give these people some time. You don't even get to enjoy your success with games like this anymore.
And he really only came forward on this because another developer ripped him for it. And basically said, like, this shows the pitfalls of early access with a small team and success. And they're like, we don't give a shit. Like, I'm the publisher. He's like, I'm the publisher, and I don't care. I told him, sit back, do what you need to do, maintain the thing, and we'll get there. Also, like, one of the small updates is a 3,000-word patch note. They're it's any battle plan does not survive contact with the enemy, and the enemy is the player as always. And they're gonna, this team's got to get this thing up to snuff and fix everything people are breaking and finding and stuff, and then they'll start to work their way towards a 1.0. It's a slow process, but that's what you get, and it helps that it's like there's nothing else like it. Yeah, I mean, you can't just go get your Manor Lords fix anywhere else. So there's an advantage there.
It's like Mike Tyson once said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
And then what do you do?
So yeah, it's just no gamers never beating the entitled shitheads.
That's what's happening here. Yeah, it's like they have no respect for the people who have made the game at all.
And there's plenty of people in the comments and in the reviews and Steam and stuff that are very appreciative and thankful about it. Yeah. But it's just like the loud voices are the ones that are screaming about blah, 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 blah.
The vocal minority. I saw someone mention that in chat a minute ago, talking about vocal minorities and how, it's always the people who are angry who make the most noise, and the people who enjoy things don't, sometimes say anything. And I think if you work online in content, you learn that too. Like, it feels like the only stories that get a lot of comments anymore on the internet are when people are complaining about something. Like, for example, Matt, like, we hardly ever see comments on this show about, like, hey, wow, that thing that Matt said about that game was very insightful and cool, and here's what I think about it. It's always like, here's where Matt was wrong. Here's where Shane was wrong. Here's where they made a mistake. It feels like people on the internet anymore are just looking to ridicule other people instead of having, like, great conversations around stuff that they love.
That's always been the internet.
Yeah.
Back Usenet was like that too. Like, it's people don't talk when they like something. They talk when they're mad or when they disagree or when they think something's wrong. I'm never wrong, by the way.
Me either.
The problem is that, like, what was it in customer service and stuff? You basically the rule of thumb is For every complaint you get, assume 100 other people feel that way. For every compliment you get, assume 1,000 other people feel that way.
Yeah.
Because you just don't get. One time, I back in the day, I used to be quite the connoisseur of flavored milk, and I bought. They were out of what I usually got, so I had to get Clover, 100% organic Clover, which I never got before. I got chocolate milk from them, and it was better, way better than what I normally got. So I wrote to them and said, "Hey, this is really good. I'm really impressed by it." And they wrote me back and said, "Wow, no one ever says stuff like that in our email. Like, this is one of the nicest emails we've ever gotten." And I'm like, that's really sad. That's too bad that no one ever writes you and says your milk's good.
And it's not just us. Like,
no, it's everyone.
No one hardly ever comments when they like something. It's always when they're pissed off or they disagree or whatever. Yeah. It's like, it can be very frustrating if you're someone who's creating stuff.
Most of my comments on the internet are some variation of what the fuck is wrong with you. Absolutely.
I mean, I'll put it to you this way, like, just to be honest, like, on Yelp, I would argue that probably if I have 10 reviews, 4 of them are positive, 6 are negative. And for me to make a positive comment, like that place or whatever it is that I'm reviewing, has to really do a kick-ass job. So, look, I'm guilty of it as well.
Specifically remind me that Yelp exists.
Right.
It's also
it's still there, yeah. I mean, I can't remember. I actually just removed it from my phone like last month when I needed space on my phone. So
it takes a lot for me to leave a negative review of something, to be honest. Like, I finally did it. I ordered, it was DoorDash. First DoorDash review I've ever, a little negative.
I didn't know people reviewed DoorDash.
Yeah, no, DoorDash reviews of individual restaurants. You can have star ratings and write a review.
Gotcha.
And I ordered, there was this place that looked like it had really good cinnamon rolls. And I ordered the cinnamon rolls. I was like, strawberry shortcake cinnamon roll and blueberry cinnamon roll.
It's their thing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, cool. Awesome. Love cinnamon roll. And they got here, and they're all individually boxed, and they were all dry rocks. Like
hockey pucks.
Nothing. Like, there was nothing. There was no moisture, no nothing. I tried to like reheat them with like bread,
wet paper towel.
Like, no, it's like the middle of the cinnamon roll is the point, right?
Yeah.
I guess the best part of the cinnamon. It was like chewing like a golf ball.
Oh,
and so I finally I broke the cinnamon roll one, the strawberry shortcake one in. It was strawberry frosting. I thought I broke it, and it was just crumbs. It was like a grenade of crumbs exploded. I'm like, cinnamon rolls aren't supposed to do that, right? I'm not crazy.
Yeah, they earned the negative review.
So I wrote like this scathing review of this horrid cinnamon roll shop. How dare you? How dare you claim a mother made these cinnamon rolls?
Did they send you like a whole box of free ones or something?
3 weeks, and I kept looking because they keep popping up in my recommends, and they have like their rating overall is like, they're pretty new, but their rating overall was like 2 out of 5. Clearly I wasn't the only one with a problem with them. And at one point, I looked at, they popped up again, and they had no reviews. They wiped the reviews and started over.
So they started a new page?
No, it was.
Or they got Yelp to wipe the bad reviews.
I couldn't tell, but
that's why you can't trust Yelp.
They had no stars anymore because they had no reviews. They started completely over. I'm just like, well, maybe you start the fucking baking over because like that's where I'd start.
Yelp may have just wiped them out. Like, they may have said, "Hey, we'll give you $1,000 a month in marketing if you wipe out these reviews, and we can start again." And then Yelp's like,
"Oh, this is DoorDash."
Okay.
I don't know how DoorDash works.
It could be the same thing, but DoorDash probably doesn't pay for reviews. You wouldn't think.
No, they don't do that.
Yeah,
DoorDash is just like looking for feedback.
It sounds like the place just started a new page.
Could have been.
That's what it sounds like.
There's also somewhere in my favorite restaurants. There's also one that it's got a random picture of like a hamburger, and it just says the title of the restaurant is now. Out of business placeholder, do not reactivate. And I'm like, I don't know what restaurant that used to be that I like. Apparently, I liked at some point, but apparently they're not around anymore.
And
the menu is just like a weird mishmash of Taco Bell's menu and the counter. And I'm like, I don't know, how does that happen?
It's weird. Taco Bell combines with a lot of restaurants, though. They have the combination Taco Bell and Pizza Hut.
Right, but that's just they own. I don't think the counter has anything.
No.
You're not going to get fresh buffalo in your Taco Bell taco anytime soon, I assure you.
Yeah. So anyway, what were we talking about again? Manor Lords?
Manor Lords. That's what we got on this.
So anyway, leave developers alone, particularly when they're on small teams. Look, I mean, it's amazing what that team has delivered already, that they were able to do that with such a small crew of workers. Like, just revel in that and enjoy what's there, and then take a break. Let them work on it for a while. Come back 4 months later when they shoot a new patch and play it again.
Like, I'm interested in Manor Lords, but I always wait for 1.0 unless I'm real.
Yeah.
Even Baldur's Gate 3, I didn't want to wait on that, so I played it. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. I'm gonna wait for 2 more years.
Yeah.
3 more, whatever that was, 3 more years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was probably the right call. 1.0s are really where you want to start out. Unless you're really interested in feedback, if you're beta testing, like there's people who are into that. I'm not.
Yeah, I don't have time for that stuff
I'd rather play the game when it's done.
Yeah, me too. So anyway, take it easy on these small teams, man. They're busting their butts for you guys. They're making games that you like. Take a break, go play something else, come back. I bet you the game's better than it was when you left.
Also, that's just early access.
That's it. That's how it is.
There are games I have in early access that I bought in like 2016.
Some of them stay in early access for like 5-6 years or forever. Yeah, they never come out. So anyway, again, be kind to these smaller developers. They're doing the best that they can. Next up, I don't know what to take from this, Matt. PlayStation just announced that it is going to Tokyo Game Show this year. What the hell is going on, man?
They got a bunch of mobile games?
What the hell? So is this Jim Ryan's left? He was the guy who didn't want to do trade shows. Now that he's gone, we're going to do trade shows again?
I don't know.
I mean,
this seems like a hell of a one to start with.
So the last trade show they did was TGS in 2019. They did E3, then they did Tokyo. Or wait, was E3 2018 the last one they were at, or 2019?
2018 was.
Was it? Okay. So then they waited a year pretty much.
2019 was the last E3.
Right, their last real one, yeah. So they were gone the year before, you're right. So then they waited a year, did Tokyo Game Show, which kind of made sense because they were launching the PlayStation 5 then. Now, though, why would it go back?
I don't know.
I mean, my guess is, you're seeing B-roll at TGS right now. My guess is Kojima is like, hey, we're ready to show off Death Stranding 2, the first gameplay or whatever.
Or the other one, OD?
OD or Fizzant or any of the freaking things he's working on.
OD sounds like it's the furthest along of all those projects,
So could it be that Kojima has convinced PlayStation to show up so they can build a booth for Death Stranding 2 or like what the hell? Could this be the beginning of PlayStation shifting gears and going back to trade shows again? Or do you think it's just a one-off?
So. I don't know what they're doing here.
It's really bizarre.
I don't know what you'd use TGS for, really.
Particularly right now, because PlayStation doesn't have a lot of games.
Right. Well, especially because it's a public, it's always been a public show. So, like, if you're going to TGS, you'd assume it's because you want the public to be able to experience or play something you've got to show them. But now I'm just like, well, what do you...
Concord? Japan's going to love that.
I don't know.
I don't get it.
They got one of those games as a service things are ready to unleash, or
yeah, I mean Concord is the one.
I mean something after that.
Not really, unless they're going to announce something
specifically targeted to the Japanese market.
Not
a bunch of
really.
Mobile shit. I don't know.
I mean, PlayStation did say that
finally going to announce the Pro.
Maybe PlayStation did say is going to shift and start doing more on mobile, so that could be part of it.
Yeah, I mean, mobile is the star of TGS.
It is. Yeah, it makes up probably 60% of the show floor.
Yeah, like this B-roll notwithstanding.
Well, this B-roll is shot for the console folks. Yeah.
But most of it is mobile stuff now, just like
if you go behind these little stand-ups here, it's just a mobile wasteland. Yeah. But I was shocked to find out that it's going back to Tokyo Game Show. I mean, could it be desperation because Nintendo is just kicking its ass in Japan? I don't know.
I mean, I wouldn't worry if I were them. I wouldn't be worried about that because we're kicking ass everywhere else.
Yeah. But you know how Japanese companies are. They want to do well in their home territory. It's somewhat. A pride thing.
I mean, it could be some sort of like bounce back from Ryan being gone, and now they're like, well, we'll do this instead and see if anything
changes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, especially like this year where you're like, I don't know, are they going to show a bunch of stuff for next year?
I don't know. Like, I don't know what they could show, Matt. We just saw their state of play a month ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a cheap layout. You're putting out some money to do this.
Yeah.
So they must
There's something.
They must have something.
There's something going on. Yeah.
You could be right. It could just be Kojima saying like I want, but like you don't need to be there as Sony for that. Kojima could be there by himself.
But he'd have to put up his own booth and.
Right, but you could have Sony pay for that and still not have it be Sony's official presence there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Just have it be Death Stranding.
But you can see here back in 2019, the PlayStation booth was the Death Stranding booth. Like it literally,
I mean, you could reuse all that.
Yeah, you could.
You just put the new art in there.
Yeah,
they do that all the time.
Yeah. I'm actually kind of encouraged by this. Like, I'm thinking maybe there's at least now a chance that it may come to other trade shows after this. Probably not, but at least there's a chance.
Shows?
Like
Gamescom
and whatever not E3 is. Eventually,
that's not a show.
Yeah, it's really not. And then they were at Jeff's like in-person thing, but that's not the same thing.
No.
Like that's you're basically you got a little like closet set up to show like 8 game journalists like whatever game you deemed okay to show to the public or whatever. It's not the same thing, but so I don't know, but this is auspicious to me. It's better than them not doing Tokyo Game Show as far as I'm concerned. At least it shows that it's willing to at least consider trade shows going forward, whereas before it seemed like it was just completely off the table. And it really, the only thing that's changed, other than the PlayStation 5 sales starting to slow down, Jim Ryan leaving. Mm-hmm. Those are the 2 kind of big events in PlayStation land over the last 6 months or so. So we'll see, but PlayStation's going to be at a trade show, people. That's a big deal. It's been 5 years since it's attended a single trade show. So something's afoot. There's some reason that PlayStation has decided to do this. We don't know what it is yet. But we should find out here pretty soon because TGS is only a couple months away. Mm-hmm. So we should learn more information pretty soon. But the good news is maybe there's some excitement about TGS this year. I mean, the last couple years, Matt, I don't even know if we even covered it on GameFace.
It wasn't really much to talk about.
Yeah, I don't think we even did like a little 10-minute segment rounding up like what happened, like because there just wasn't anything happening. So, and obviously Nintendo's not going to be there. Xbox says it's not going to be there. So this is going to be all PlayStation at Tokyo Game Show, plus the Japanese publishers, Capcom and Bandai Namco and all that stuff. So we'll see, but it does look like maybe Tokyo Game Show is going to start gaining a little momentum again, which is good to see because really that trade show has lost a lot of its luster over the last really kind of decade or more.
Even longer.
Yeah, because I went there in 2012 and I was like, we'll never come back here again. No. There was the biggest waste of money.
We'd already decided that in 2007. Like it was already not good. I mean, it was probably different for game trailers because game trailers were willing to cover more.
Yeah, we were digital. Things. It's not like, a big commitment to just put up trailers that we get there.
For like doing like TV episodes, like the and the people running G4 at that point didn't know shit about shit when it came to video games. So there was like, well, these don't look exciting anymore because it was all a bunch of kiosks.
Yeah, I mean, look, we went there and kind of milked that place dry because we went there for 5 years in a row, 6 years in a row, and you start to learn like all the little gags and the funny stuff you can do, and then like you start to get to the point you're like, well, we've done that already twice, we've done that 3 times.
You got to the point where it's like, well, if you want us to do new Japan stuff, we're gonna have to start leaving Tokyo, and nobody wanted to pay for that kind of time because like getting down to Osaka is not, and like Sega offered, Capcom, there was like, but like also that point the people that were running the shows. Running the network didn't care about a tour of Capcom. They wanted, Ninja Warrior 40 times over, which we also spent a lot of time at. Even and so after 2007, we were just done. And I got really sick that year, so I was like, I'm never going back there again. I mean, I'd like to go back on my own terms, but like
for work,
I'm just like, I'm done going back for work because they were. And at that point, they were sending like an army of 40 people, and it was just completely unwieldy.
Chaos.
It was different when we were all going to Japan for that, and there was like 6 or 7 of us, and we were all people from the same show team, and we were all friends anyway. Yeah. And then like you send like a group of 40, and it's just like, oh, there's like 3 people I really don't like here.
Yeah. and like 20 that I don't even really know.
Absolutely.
And I have to work with them. Yeah. So anyway, it looks like maybe Tokyo Game Show is turning around a little bit. We'll see. But this is at least a good first step. That PlayStation is at least considering trade shows once again. Next up, EA. We praised them 5 minutes ago for eliminating deaths in Veilguard, and now here we are to slag them because Respawn EA announced yesterday that they are changing the way battle passes work in Apex Legends. It used to be there was one battle pass. If you played through it, you earned enough credits that you could buy the next battle pass, basically. You never had to pay for battle passes as long as you played a lot. Well, EA announced yesterday that it's completely changing how all that works, and now there are going to be 2 battle passes for each season of Apex Legends, and now there is no way to earn them by playing the game. They've completely eliminated what every other battle pass in the industry does, which is like, hey, if you're a really dedicated player and you're playing every day, you can basically play all this content for free. If you're a casual, you're probably going to have to pay the $10 or whatever. EA is just like, nah, now on everyone's going to have to pay. EA is trying to say that where people will save their money is the people who are giving them the $20-some a month, who are like the whales, basically. They're like, oh, well, the whales will actually end up saving money on this, but the vast majority of the people who play Apex Legends are not whales. They're just people like us who are like, I like this game. Like, I play it every day. It's my daily driver. And as long as I keep playing it like this, I'm not going to have to spend any money on it. It's just a total cash grab. From the people who are poorest. They're giving a break to the people who are wealthy whales, and they're sticking it to the people who...
Well, remember in their boardroom that the wealthy whales just translates to our best customers.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's who they care about the most. So they're like, oh, we can give these guys a little bit of a discount. And the truth of the matter is, the whales don't care about the discount. Because they're spending more than $20 a month anyway. They're the ones who buy, like, the whole suite of cosmetics, and, like, they're spending more than $20. So you're saving, like, rich people a couple dollars a month, and then you're now basically trying to squeeze your poorer fans for $20 now per season instead of just 10. It's, again, like, they had such a good thing going, Matt. Apex Legends is a cash cow for EA. It literally has kept EA going during quarters where, like, they had no releases. It generates, like, I think Patrick told me it's $1 billion a year or something insane. And EA is trying to kill its cash cow. It's like, have you not made enough money off of this game? Are you not making enough money off of this game?
Line must go up.
It's crazy. But you're right.
What's the only other way to make the line go up is to charge more.
Yeah.
So here
EA
we
is
are.
a publicly held company, and they have to answer to their stockholders, and this is the type of stuff that happens. So I don't know if any of y'all are big Apex Legends fans. If you are, it would be interesting to get your perspective on this and how you guys feel about it. Vincent says, most battle passes don't let you earn them now, though. Fortnite is the real exception. Is that true?
Yeah.
Really? They've eliminated that from the battle pass.
A lot of places never had that.
Really?
Like,
you could never earn the free
I
season?
cannot remember the last new free-to-play game that let you earn the battle pass.
Really?
Yeah. Fortnite was weird that way.
I just played a game with a battle pass where I was getting free unlocks the whole way through.
Free unlocks, but not the premium stuff.
So there's
so the like, what if, unless I'm misunderstanding what Apex is doing here, you're still going to have a battle pass that's sort of the seasonal battle passy thing that
2 per season now.
Yeah. So the first one, you used to be able to, one of the unlocks in the first one was the premium battle pass, right? You can't do that anymore. So what I'm understanding is it's like you're still going to have that first battle pass, which is sort of the set of goals everybody has in common for the season or whatever. But no matter how much you do of that, you're never going to unlock the premium battle pass. That's the change.
Gotcha.
So you have to pay for that premium battle pass.
So they basically separated the premium pass away from the other one, so there's now 2, and there's no way you can earn the second one.
And you used to be able to use the free one to earn the paid one.
Gotcha.
If you played a lot.
Or a lot, yeah.
And Fortnite was sort of the template for that because they're the first ones that really did that. And a lot of people didn't follow suit.
Which is kind of silly,
because a lot of games are just like, here's the battle pass, you can buy it or don't.
Yeah.
You know, Helldivers too does it. You know, they have free battle passes, but nothing you do in those the free objective things will ever get you the paid one.
And that's a paid game that you pay for.
Yeah.
Which is kind of dicey.
Yeah. I mean, I don't go in for. I mean, all this stuff just makes me glad I never got into any of these.
Any of them. Yeah. I don't really have like a game like this that I play either. I play them for a little bit. If they have like a big update, I'll go play Fortnite for a few hours and check it out. But like, I never go back. I never keep playing it. That's for sure.
That's right. You paid 900 V-Bucks, but you got 1,500 back if you did everything.
Yeah.
So it was essentially, it was retroactively free.
It's like you always earned the V-Bucks to buy the next battle pass. Or you get to the end and then you've earned enough to buy it. Like the battle pass in Call of Duty is confusing as crap to me.
Suicide Squad, you can get the battle pass, but you better, considering the status of Suicide Squad.
They should be giving it away.
Also, like, it's a tangent, but like, because they showed like the new thing for whatever. Who is approving the costumes over there on that game?
For which game?
Suicide Squad.
Oh.
They are the ugliest thing. Like, the new costume for Joker is like some weird, like, he's like covered in like scrap metal painted purple. And I'm like, what are you doing?
I can't believe they're still putting out
content. There's not even
for
anything appealing about it. It's fucking bonkers.
I can't believe they put out another season of content. I thought they'd just kill it. But...
Oh, and okay, Suicide Squad just delayed its new season 2 days from release. So I guess they heard something. Somebody heard. Like, talk about wasting your fucking time.
And Erebus says you can earn the battle pass in Diablo 4, but it's not 1-to-1.
Right. It's like you might be able to afford like one every
2
year,
or 3 seasons.
Once a year or so. Yeah.
Yeah, which is better than nothing. But
yeah, but it's just, again,
the problem is when you change It's like if you've operated a certain way for years and then you go for the cash grab like out of nowhere.
No, this is very clearly we're trying to please someone and it ain't the players.
Mm-hmm.
So
the players are pissed.
Yeah, I would be too.
Yeah, and to your point, I'm glad that I never got mixed up in any of these games.
No.
It's like it's kind of by design because we just always have to keep moving on. But I do have daily driver games that I play. But just never been one of these. They've just never caught on for me for whatever reason.
Yeah, I just don't. Also, like this, I'm not into repetition in terms of like, and like, my problem with this battle royale game is like just the feeling of never getting anywhere. It's just like every time you start over with nothing, doing the same thing on the same map all the times with the same people, and I'm just like, I don't want to do. This is not how I want to spend my time. I get very existential about it. I'm just like, oh, this is how I'm spending my finite lifespan, huh?
I mean, I'm getting like that a lot now. I really look at like what I'm spending my time on, and I'm like, is this worth it? I'm like, this is my age. This is how many years I have left. Is it worth it to do this right now? A lot of times it's not. I found myself doing that with TV shows and films. Like I'll get like 20 minutes into them, and I'll be like, nope, not watching this. I'm spending 2 hours on this. It's not good enough. It's not worth my time.
Yeah, like there was a time I'd go see that 3-hour Kevin Costner Western, part 1 of 4, that's out right now, just out of curiosity. But I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. Right? 3 hours, I'll do that. I'll wait for it to come home, and so I can do something else while I'm doing that, because it sounds like pretty good background noise.
Yeah, in your 20s, you have literally all the time in the world.
The best thing about that Western, Horizon, it's called, not to be confused with the,
the
post-apocalyptic robot dinosaur game.
Yeah.
The best thing about that is during the press tour, Kevin Costner, apparently someone found out that Kevin Costner's favorite thing in the world is banana milkshakes.
Oh.
So people kept bringing him banana milkshakes from local places to see what he thought of them. So like there's a compilation of just him judging banana milkshakes from like all these different places across the country. And it's very, very, it's like the most relatable and funny Kevin Costner's been in forever. I'm like, why don't you make this movie? Like, Kevin Costner traveling the country finding the best banana milkshake is way more compelling than almost anything he's made since Field of Dreams.
Yeah, there's a guy on ESPN named John Buchagras, and he reviews chicken parm. He's a hockey announcer. He's really into hockey, so he goes to all the cities to cover games. And every city he goes to, he tries to find the best place that has chicken parm. He does his little review of it on his Twitter feed or whatever. It's pretty cool. But so anyway... again, I'm glad I'm not an Apex Legends player. If you are, you may want to reconsider and maybe find something else. But to Chat's point, it sounds like no matter where you go, you're going to kind of deal with the same environment now.
Yeah, well, unless you just don't play something with the battle pass.
I'm sure EA was like, oh, look, we've been hooking you guys up for all this time. Now we're just going to where everybody else is.
It's like I did load up Star Wars Hunters briefly, and like you play through the tutorial of that, which is obviously bots. Like, because at a certain point you hit a point, I'm like, oh, now I'm playing people.
Yeah,
okay,
you actually die.
Yeah. I think, for the first, like, whatever number I died once, and then suddenly I got into a match where I died 4 times. I'm like, okay,
now I'm playing humans.
Yeah. But all that it's just unnavigable. Like it took me like 5 tries to figure out how to change my icon.
It's
like,
insane.
Just so much stuff.
It's overwhelming when you go to that home screen.
And I'm like, and it's just like constantly like unlock, this unlock. I was like, I see what you're doing. It's like I see the strings.
You feel like they want you to feel like you're always making progress.
Yeah.
All these games do this, really.
Yeah, and I feel like Napoleon and Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and all those restaurant guys are being like Ziggy Piggy Ziggy. I was like,
or it's like Robin Williams.
Like, let me eat my fucking ice cream.
Robin Williams in Moscow on the Hudson. Do you remember that scene where he goes into the grocery store? And he's from Russia. He had defected from being in the Russian circus or whatever. He goes into a grocery store and he goes into the coffee aisle. And he's from Russia. He's used to just having one kind of coffee. And he goes to the coffee aisle and he just sees 50 different kinds of coffee. And it's so overwhelming that he passes out and falls down and all the coffee like falls on him. I mean, it's kind of the same thing. That's what they're doing with these free-to-play games. When you finish a round, they want all these levers going off, all these meters filling up, and
I guess I would more liken it to Airplane when Robert Stack has to beat the shit out of all the people trying to give him pamphlets as he walks into the airport.
It's a great scene too. So anyway, if you're a big fan of Apex Legends, it might be time to reevaluate. Next up, and we're almost done with our housekeeping. We found out something this week, Matt, that I think everybody just assumed was the case, and as it turns out it was. And that is
I was 100% sure it was the case.
Yeah. And that is the reason we never got any DLC for Grand Theft Auto 5 was because everybody was playing and spending money on GTA Online.
There's no point.
Why? Yeah, why would you release story DLC?
And they've dug, as far as I remember, they've dug into the code and found like the heists were actually pulled out of the single player and made
and put into GTA Online. Yep.
Which is clear. Like I was trying to like explain that to someone at some point where like, who had just played it for the first time, and I'm like, did you notice that the heists never go anywhere? Like there's like 3 of them.
Yeah.
And when you first get introduced to them, there's all this stuff about like hire this person and they'll level up with this with every job you do. And like that never goes anywhere. Like you never build a team of anybody. You don't do it enough to level anything up. 2 of them are actually the endings are story driven, so you don't actually get the payout properly. It's all narrative based.
Yeah.
It's like there was clearly supposed to be a huge sub game here where you could do all these heists and build this team and level these people up and have specific teams for different types of heists, and it just never happened because it all ended up in GTA Online.
Yeah, and this is a cautionary tale for Grand Theft Auto 6 as well. I mean, my guess is we're just never getting story DLC for GTA again.
Probably not.
I mean, and look, I'm not
you
blaming
didn't get
Rockstar.
Any for Red Dead 2.
Right. I mean, financially, why would you?
Yeah.
But I feel like that's what most players think that or say that they want. They want the story DLC and not the content inside GTA Online.
I would certainly prefer that.
But the only way that's going to happen is if you do not play GTA Online and do not give Rockstar money in GTA Online. And at this point, like as I said a minute ago, it's probably too late. Whatever's going to happen with GTA 6 has already been decided.
Oh, yeah.
And there's no change in that. If you guys all stop playing GTA Online tomorrow, it doesn't make a difference. It's too late at this point. It's like a Titanic. You can't turn it away from the iceberg in time. So, I mean, this just looks like we're never getting story DLC for Rockstar Games going forward. They're just going to keep you in this.
Like I've said, I think we're lucky it's got a single-player component at all.
You're right. And it's not just people running around killing each other all the time. Which, there's plenty of that happening. Don't get me wrong. Like, I haven't played hardly any GTA Online. I think I've probably spent a grand total of like 4 or 5 hours playing it.
I played a good amount of it back in like PS4 era.
Yeah.
Like we played a lot of it back. So I probably got like 100 hours or something in that. We did a lot of. We did all the heists. We did all the. I mean,
so you got into it
back then. I mean, like when the heist DLC came out, like my normal online group from back then, we jumped on and played a fair amount of it. And like most of the time was like, yeah, this is cool, but I wish I was able to do it in the main game and not have to play with you fuckers. It was just tedious.
Yeah.
And then, we were playing in our own little servers. So we don't have to deal with all the randos running around.
Oh, that makes the difference, man.
And, like, eventually we did kind of start doing more public stuff. And, you're like, one of the guys bought one of those jet fighters, and you would just hunt people. Like, we'd go into servers and look for people that were being dicks and just, like, hunt them down and harass them until they left.
Yeah.
Like, but there wasn't much else to do, And I know they've added a bunch more stuff since then, but I don't remember the last time I logged into GTA Online.
Paradol says, God, I miss Robert Stack. Didn't he do like Unsolved Mysteries for a long time? Yeah. Squishy Muffin says, it's a shame there wasn't a desire to still make a single-player expansion in conjunction with the online because there would have been no barriers in manpower or money. Well, look, here's another case where you guys bet with your money. You guys went and played GTA Online. You went and spent money in GTA Online, and this is what you're getting. I mean, you made your bets. You guys decided that, like, this is good enough. I'm willing to spend money on this. And Rockstar was like, hey, people think it's good enough and they're willing to spend money on it. Why would we go about, like, creating these arduous, like, single-player focused campaign missions when we can just put this little stunt thing in GTA Online and people are fine with it? So this is what you end up with. You end up with not getting really polished single-player missions, and instead you get these kind of roughshod online, and that's why I didn't like it. Everything, all the missions in GTA Online just felt like they're held together by like modeling glue. Like, and then you'd finally start to figure out like what the game wants you to do, and some dude would just come in and just kill everybody. Like, I just never enjoyed it. I would imagine if you had a good crew or if you were on private service, obviously, then it's not a problem.
Yeah,
but
I mean, once they implemented the thing where you could basically turn off PvP while you're walking around any server, like they just don't damage you. Basically. And like you're gonna tell me that like you can't make an easy mode in fucking Dark Souls, but like they figured that out. Like, well, come on, give me
that's
a break.
Good point. But so anyway, just another kind of little mini preview of GTA 6. My guess is no single-player DLC for that game either. It's probably just going to be an extension of GTA Online. Or they just may keep the same GTA Online.
Yeah, I don't know.
We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happened.
I mean, you'd think they have to do something where...
They're not going to boot everybody off the existing one.
But they at least have to use the map it has to be GTA Online Florida,
right?
Or something.
It needs to be a connection there. Yeah, some actual connective tissue between the two. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But bottom line is, I know most Rockstar fans want that single player DLC. It's not going to happen because I just feel like Rockstar fans are so dedicated. They love them so much that they're just going to support whatever Rockstar does. So if Rockstar puts GTA Online in front of them, they're going to play GTA Online.
I think GTA Online players and GT 5 players are two different audiences.
Oh, yeah?
To a large degree.
You think they're not Rockstar fans, or they're just two different kinds of Rockstar fans?
I think they're GTA fans. I don't know what Rockstar fans are, really.
Oh, they're Rockstar fanboys, believe me.
Some, but like not on the level. I mean, it's hard to be a Rockstar fanboy because they don't
never
really
put anything out.
Don't do anything.
I mean, that's why it's easy to debate a Rockstar fanboy.
Well, right, but it's also like people are huge fans of GTA. Like it's hard to imagine a lot of those crossing over and being huge fans of Red Dead Redemption 2. And maybe I say that as because I just played a lot of Red Dead Redemption 2 this week because I had nothing else to do and I decided to play it. And I was just sharply reminded of how much that game's controls suck.
It's really insane.
Like even on the level of like Rockstar's archaic weird ideas about how controls should work. There's just like there are 4 different ways to shoot one gun in that game, depending on where you are, what you're on, what you're doing, and what the situation is.
Where the gun is.
Left trigger might aim, right trigger might aim, then left trigger might shoot, left trigger aim, then right trigger shoot. You might need to use the shoulder buttons, and that's if you didn't leave the fucking gun on your horse.
Right.
And it's just like, who has the fucking time?
Yeah.
Like, it's like I put 20 hours into that game this week, and like I feel like at least an hour was spent just dealing with things, dealing with like the fact that I accidentally shot a man in the face, or waiting for the horse to line up with the thing that it has to hitch up to because we insist on playing that animation.
It's Rockstar's hubris. They're like, look, we're going to make the games the way we want them. You guys are going to play them the way we want you to play them, and you're going to deal with it because you love our games, and you're not going to tell us what to do. Yeah,
to me, the advantage of Red Dead is that it doesn't involve any of the brain dead like edgelord South Park wannabe social commentary. There is social commentary in that game, but it doesn't.
It's set centuries ago.
It's set in 1899. It doesn't, like they're gently poking fun at women's suffrage, I guess, which is like okay. I mean, you're still mad at. I guess there are people still mad about
probably,
that as we see. But it's like periodic, and then like would you? I was playing that this week, and I'm just thinking it's like, God, what kind of weird ass shit is going to be in GTA 6 that we're going to have to be? It's like, oh, what you didn't realize that's not funny anymore, and maybe it wasn't funny in 2003 either, but like nobody just fucking paid attention back then. It's just going to be an odd.
Will they give us the ability to really aim and shoot, or are we going to have that weird lock-on thing again?
We've had the ability to aim and shoot since San Andreas PC.
Is that true?
Yeah.
I just played Grand Theft Auto 5 like a year ago to capture 4K footage of it for B-roll for GameFace, and the lock-on aiming is still there.
Oh, the lock is very strong. You can turn it all off.
Yeah, I just didn't. By default, though, it's turned on.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely better than the old lock-on, which had no aiming. Because the lock-on, same as in Red Dead, that started in 4, the way it works now. San Andreas had freer aiming.
Where you can aim, but it still snaps to certain parts.
It snaps to him, and then you can aim up at the
to get the headshot or whatever.
Yeah. You can turn all that off, and it becomes free aiming, which I wouldn't recommend unless you're using a mouse.
Yeah, you need at least a little bit of aim support, aim assist. Yeah.
But like that started with when the PC versions of 3 and Vice City were like just lock on. Like you locked on. It was
like playing Metroid Prime. Yeah.
It wasn't even that. It was like the little rectangle hit the thing, and you just hit the fire button, and like
it just went. You're right. You would like shoot
fucking Drake and the 99 Dragon shit.
I forgot about that.
And that was in Vice City, and then in San Andreas finally added second stick aiming. Which was better, but still everything was scan and
borked.
Still kind of. And then the PC versions of 3 and Vice City finally added mouse aim.
You have to,
which changed. Vice City was too easy after that point
because they built it with the idea that
you weren't gonna be able to fucking hit anything. Like it's amazing how those early 3D games were built with the idea that you're not going to be able to choose what you're shooting at effectively.
And
like once you could specifically headshot things, it was like I think GTA 3 I walked through with barely even it being touched because like you were just faster than everything else. And it's fine. Like Red Dead was fine with that. There's some hitbox questions at times. Like I really feel like I shot that deer in the head,
and it ran off.
It just didn't. And it's like it was red. It was on their face.
I pulled the trigger, and they run away.
I counted for the bullet drop. It just didn't hit, and there's no way to know.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like the you can adjust it well enough now. I haven't felt very constrained by the auto aim since 4, and that was just because it wasn't as adjustable as it is now. Going back to 4 is weird.
It's still unique. Like, there's really no other game that uses that system anymore.
And there's a reason for that,
right.
Because it's like, guess what, guys? If people wanted to duplicate the way you do it, they could, because you're the biggest thing in the world. So,
but they didn't.
But they don't.
So
and
what does
there's
that
probably
tell you?
something to learn from that.
Yeah.
I'm very curious with the new one. I mean, you do need some kind of auto target.
Yeah.
Because of how busy the.
Otherwise, it gets all squirrely too. It's just really hard to aim without some kind of an assist.
Yeah. Same with especially Red Dead, where you're just like, there's points where I'm like, I can't even see the rabbit I'm aiming at, but the auto target.
The red dot's there.
Yeah, red dot's there. I'm gonna hit him. Yeah, I'm curious how they're gonna play that. I mean, my guess is they're not gonna mess with success, so to speak.
Yeah.
I'm also very curious what the driving model will be like, because I know
people hate the driving too in those games.
Well, so it
but
depends.
if you get used to it, it works fine.
Well, it's like people hated the driving in 4, but 4 is actually the most realistic driving model they've ever had, and they went back to more of an arcadey feel for 5, which I think people prefer. I mean, it's GTA.
You really got to lay off the gas and you go around turns. And it takes people a little bit to figure that out.
I mean, the cars in 4 were boats to some degree. And like the one thing I am glad that we've left in the past in these kinds of games, and other games did this too, where it's like, turning hard doesn't make your hubcap fall off. I'm so, like, I don't know what that was. Like, there was a period where like every time you turn,
TV
like,
show trope,
just roll off. Like, I was like, what is that?
Every
like,
cop show from the 80s
they did
had that.
Driver did that. Stuntman did that. Like, it's just like, guys, like there's bolts on those.
Yeah. So anyway, just keep in mind how you spend your money matters. It trickles down and it affects what happens later on down the road. So spend your money wisely. Just 2 more stories in our housekeeping. First one, again, not a really...
Squishy Muffin, the White Arabian Horse, is my horse. Yes, it is a control nightmare, but it's the fastest thing in the game. So yes, that's what that is actually. One of the first things I did was go get that horse, because that's my horse.
Cineplex says, gonna need that AK TV to see the rabbit.
Yep.
Nice callback.
Cinetech also said he hasn't played a single GTA since 2.
Wow.
You should submit yourself to some kind of scientific study or something.
See how you resisted.
There's probably some things you could learn about. Resisted, and also like expose him to the game since then and see what he does. Like,
right.
Like, I feel like there's a research opportunity there. You don't get a pure specimen that often anymore. Everyone's played GTA 3 at least.
Yep. Next up, and something that also isn't a surprise if you watched us review this game here on GameFace, Capcom just pulled the plug on its cooperative shooter, Exoprimal. It is a shooter where you and your buddies shoot at these dinosaurs that come out of these weird sci-fi rifts in the sky. This was one of those games that the Duck Consulting Agency flagged very early on as probably a bad idea. This is one of the few mistakes Capcom has made in a long, long time.
Yeah. There's a bunch of, if you just made Dino Crisis remastered or remake out of this one instead of this, I feel like you would have been much happier with the outcome.
Yeah.
What a dumb game.
It's just so stupid. And the crazy part about it, really, Matt, ultimately, is that...
It feels like this comes from an alternate universe where, like, Anthem was really popular or
right.
something. I don't know what they're doing here. It's like a weird mix of Overwatch and Anthem, and... like, Anthem was never a thing, and Overwatch was kind of already over by the time they got this out, and it was just... I don't know what you're... Like, if only someone had a PvE Overwatch game versus dinosaurs.
It's
like,
set in, like, a futuristic city. Yeah, it's like, to me, the thing is everybody wants a new Dino Crisis game, and instead Capcom delivers this.
Yeah.
It's just, I still don't
understand.
And
I know this was, like, sort of, like, prompted by, I think, Microsoft or something. Like, there was outside funding on this. It was sort of like a request, like almost a contract job. But it's just, I don't know. If you need a better example of how poorly board meeting decisions go, like, I don't know what the hell. Like,
this game lasted a year.
Like, I can definitely see, like, the wrong executives looking at a pitch deck for this and be like, oh, yeah, this is great. Awesome. Mechs, Iron Man suits, and dinosaurs. Everybody loves Iron Man and Jurassic Park. Like, go for it.
This is another one of those games that's like visual puke. I mentioned that last week. It's just too many colors, too much crap going on, too much sci-fi.
There's just nothing appealing about it at all.
And the other thing, too, is that Capcom supported this game. It wasn't like it launched, nobody cared, and they gave up. Like, they have supported this with regular, significant DLC. They have had almost every Capcom crossover you can think of, as far like Mega Man was in this game, Matt. Like they brought every significant character they had into this, and nothing moved the needle. And again, we could have told Capcom this before the game was even greenlit, but Capcom generally, everything it touches has turned to gold for the last like 5 years straight. So one slight mistake does not a bad publisher make. So,
and then the funny thing is that, like, Earth Defense Force 6 is about to come out, and that's going to do a lot of the same stuff that this is doing, but way jankier and way more fun.
And people will like it more, because they play into the jank in that franchise. This game was janky, but it didn't intend to be janky.
And it's not going to be a game as a service.
Yeah. And that's another thing. I think that's maybe why this game was greenlit. It came out during the whole mad rush of everything needs to be a game as a service.
And that is just not Capcom's forte. Outside of Monster Hunter World, the Monster Hunter games, Capcom's online stuff hasn't been amazing. Like they're still trying to figure out how to crack that code on Resident Evil.
Yeah.
I think they got the online play pretty down on Street Fighter 6 finally, but they had to have a complete disaster in the interim with Street Fighter V's launch to learn that.
And it was a disaster. Yeah.
Just they're not very good at that part.
Yeah, they're not. And maybe Capcom's figured it out because we haven't seen it announced any other games like this. Instead, we get Kunitsu-Gami, Path of the Goddess, which is just crazy bizarre. So I do feel like Capcom has a little bit of its resources it always dedicates to games that it probably feels is pushing the envelope. So maybe we shouldn't be too down on games like this because maybe it's just Capcom trying to test the waters for more unique ideas. And I feel like the industry needs more than that.
And you just end up with that one game that still isn't. I can't even remember the name of it, but the astronaut and the little girl and
Pragmata.
Yeah.
Which disappeared again.
Yeah.
By the way, they said it was delayed. They didn't show it in the Capcom thing last week.
I mean, that again, the apology note trailer from last year really seemed to indicate see in a few years.
Yeah. We may not see it again until maybe late next year or even later than that. So, but that's another. You're right. It's like a push the envelope type game where Capcom's like, this may not sell very well, but maybe it pushes us in new directions. And
sometimes you come up with gold, and sometimes you come up with P&O 3. So
or Exoprimal. Yeah. So rest in peace, Exoprimal. And then our last story for today's housekeeping isn't really a story. It's just me being very happy and celebrating. And it was announced this week, the Star Wars Outlaws has gone gold. It will release on August 30th, just like it's supposed to. Matt's fantasy team will benefit greatly from its release, and I will probably lose. But no more delays. It's coming in like early. Like, who would have thought when we did our draft back in January? We were both sweating whether this game would come out at all. Not only that, it's coming out in August.
Yeah, I knew. I was pretty sure it was coming this year.
Yeah, I was not. You have your insiders at Ubi, though, that tell you some stuff.
Well, it used to be.
Yeah.
None of those people work at Ubi.
Did they help you with this one, though, before they jetted?
No. They didn't really know much about this one.
Oh, really?
They were all gone by then.
Okay. Well, I'm very excited for this. Obviously,
obviously that community, like, those people all talk to each other because all Canadian devs are all they all know each other.
Yeah, they do.
Toronto is a smaller city than you think it is.
Yeah,
that kind of
it
thing.
is. But and Montreal.
But no, I don't know anything special about this game, especially because it's not made in Canada.
Right.
So.
Yeah, but still, that stuff trickles down a lot of times. Plus, the way Ubi makes games, it's like a lot of people have their fingers in the pie.
Someone in that crowd would have probably warned me because they know me in Star Wars more than anything else. They would have been like, "Hey, don't pin part of your year on this." Just so you know, like, someone would have probably said that to me around January 1st.
Right.
Like, just so you know, But no one. There was never any reason to really worry about this one.
Yep. So finally, we're gonna have another bona fide, certified blockbuster coming out in the games industry just next month. Obviously,
I don't know. I was told this game's gonna bomb because there's a girl in it.
Oh, that could be. And she doesn't look like a Playboy
no,
model.
No, she's ugly apparently. Swear to God.
Yeah. It's really crazy, the spaces that we're operating in these days, Matt.
It's really crazy how people don't seem to have understood the franchises that they claim they love so much.
That they think they're big fans of, yeah.
That first movie came out today, all these same people would just be whining about how Leia acts like a girl boss to Han Solo.
But they would also say, but slave Leia.
Well, that was the third movie.
Right,
We've never gotten to the third movie because the first one's so terrible.
Oh, it would have bombed, right?
So terrible because she's like making fun of men,
right?
And she's like, it was like,
but once she becomes the slave, then it's all okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just put that in there to just celebrate with you guys and get excited about a really huge video game that's on the horizon. We've all been kind of struggling through these last few months trying to find stuff to play to satisfy our hobby, and next month it kind of kicks off the end of 2024, and probably from the end of August till the end of the year, there's going to be pretty much good stuff until the end of the year. So it's also a harbinger of other things to come. But yeah, next month we'll be playing Star Wars Outlaws. I'm very excited about that, and you should be too. Vincent says the irony is that ZZZ is probably going to make more money. They're talking about Zenless Zone Zero, I'm assuming. I don't know what they're talking about.
One assumes.
Pragmata, comparing it to Pragmata, maybe. The Abrams says, I feel like this will review around an 8. That would be a huge problem for Ubisoft if that game reviewed at an 8.
Outlaws?
What'd you say?
Outlaws?
Yeah.
Somewhere in the 8s, probably.
I think it's going to get a 9 or higher.
That would be good.
Yeah. Like, good for your team, that's for sure.
I don't know. I think there's already too much like Ubi formula whining about this already. And
Maybe.
the previews were not super glowing.
So Game Informer did its exclusive cover story last month, and now IGN has it this month. I don't know if I've ever seen that, where, I mean, it takes a game this big to do it, where also, IGN would be willing to do, because look, at game trailers...
takes a release schedule this empty to do it. What else are they going to cover?
Because at game trailers, when we were just rolling in exclusives like day in and day out, like we got to the point where we could be like demanding. And they'd be like, hey, like, will you run this exclusive on the homepage all weekend at the top slot? And I'd be like, oh, well, what are your plans with everybody else? Well, you know, we've got this big... Nope, then we're not doing it. Like, we could literally use our weight to, like...
Oh, I remember.
Yeah. Because then if like they would start balking...
We lost a lot of stuff from that.
Seriously, though. And if they would start to balk or, like, be like, I don't know, I'd just call Jeff and be like, Jeff, can I get this in the show? Yep, absolutely. Call him right back. Okay, well, I'm going to sweeten the pot and we'll put it in the TV show on Spike TV. And that would seal it every time. So this is... I would never back then allow Game Informer to blow out a game for a month and then on game trailers the next month blow it out for the publisher. I just wouldn't. And they knew that after a while, and they just wouldn't schedule the stuff with the other publications, and they just set us stuff with Jeff and I instead.
Nobody has that kind of leverage anymore.
No, because there aren't enough games anymore. That's really the big difference. It's like everything is such a huge bet now. It's like they could say, okay, well, we'll do this game with you and Jeff, but then we'll do this other game with Game Informer. And now there is no other game to do with Game Informer. There's just the one game that everybody's fighting over now. So... Again, it's strange times in the games industry.
This year.
Yeah, this year in particular. It's been really, really bad. So anyway, Star Wars Outlaws has gone gold. It is coming out August 30th. There will be no delays. We will all be in bliss as we play the first ever real open-world Star Wars game. Can't believe we had to wait this long for it, but here it is, finally. All right, that's it for our housekeeping. It's time to get on with the bulk of the show. But before that, here's a word from our sponsor, LS Cream.
Hey everyone, Steven's here from LS Cream. I hope that everybody's doing well. Guys, if you've heard Shane talk about it a little bit, about all the situation in Pennsylvania, getting LS Cream into that, basically you quickly understand that the liquor industry, it's kind of difficult to navigate in. Right now, we've been put in a situation where one of our distributors has basically kept all of our money. That was not obviously part of the plan. We basically started an Indiegogo campaign to overcome that situation. Basically, you'll be able to we'll be able to ship you a bottle of LS Cream regardless of where you are. A lot of people in the comments during GameFace, they say about having LS Cream in Europe. So this is your chance to actually get a bottle of LS Cream using that campaign. So first of all, I want to thank every one of you that supported LS Cream since the beginning that we've been sponsoring GameFace, and for now, I really hope that you guys are gonna go and support us. And thank you so much. We are not backing down. We deserve a shot. This industry is kind of corrupt, but we're trying to make a difference. Thank you so much for your help, and I'll see you soon.
That's right, people. Go to Indiegogo.com and then just search for LS Cream. You can go to their Indiegogo program so they can get distribution throughout the rest of the U.S. So all of us can just go to our local store and pick up a bottle of LS Cream. Now, in the interim, you can use their official website, creamls.com/sifted. You can go there. You can figure out how to get bottles shipped directly to you, or it will tell you where the closest place is locally to find yourself a bottle of LS Cream. Ain't no party like an LS Cream party. I love that new ad. So anyway, support Stevens Charles, support LS Cream, go to Indiegogo.com and support them if you can so they can get distribution into the entirety of the U.S. And with that, it's time to get on with the show proper. We're going to kick things off with, and I think people maybe will debate this, Matt, of what the biggest game of this week is. Right now in chat, everyone's talking about Zenless Zone Zero, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But I think the biggest game of the week, honestly, is the first Descendant.
Biggest in what sense?
Player count,
That's gonna be
activity.
That's gonna be Zenless Zone Zero by a long, wide margin.
You're right, because they announced that
China.
they have 50 million people that are playing it because the game's available on mobile.
Mobile and China and it's like,
Yeah.
ZZZ is bigger.
And it's made 20 million so far since it launched, Zenless Zone Zero. But
They really have figured out something over there. At, what was that?
Hoyoverse.
Hoyoverse, yeah.
Did you notice that the home screen of PS5, the icon for the game does not say Zenless Zone Zero. It says Hoyoverse,
yeah.
because it knows that all those 12-year-old boys know exactly what Hoyoverse is, and they're like, hot damn, I just played one of their other games for the last 9 months straight, and now here's the new one. But anyway, we're going to talk about the first Descendant. And I guess what I should have really said was it wasn't necessarily about the player count. It's about like the conversation online, people around our age. Most of them are playing this game right now. It is a game as a service. It is also free to play. It is the most generic form of a game as a service. The third-person sci-fi cooperative shooter. Feels like it's become the template for the game as a service. And sadly, what I would say about this game is it is the template. It really struggles to do much of anything new. Can you think of anything?
It is weirdly accurately titled.
Yeah.
The first Descendant.
Descendant.
It is the first... it's like the template and the inevitable result of the most generic combination of all the things that these games do.
Yeah. I can't think of anything unique that it really does.
No. I mean, everything reminds me of something else. I mean, I guess there aren't a lot of games coming out now that put this amount of emphasis on the ass of the female character in the shot when you're playing. Like that seems to be one of its primary draws, or at least it thinks it is. Other than that, not real. I mean, it looks like the most generic thing you could possibly imagine.
And it is. But it's surprisingly competent.
Yeah, it's not bad. It plays fine. But like I played like 2 matches of it or 2 games of this or whatever, and was like, yeah, I'm good. Like there's literally nothing to like. The only reason to play this game is because you want time to pass. Like that's
it's a time waster. Yeah. It's a good. Yeah, it's a game you can play while you listen doing other stuff.
Like you could just go play another third-person shooter, and most of them are probably better or at least as good at this as this. And they're
But here's the thing: this one's free.
Yeah, but like you probably own a bunch of stuff better than this already.
Maybe, but you've played it already.
Yeah, you played this already too.
That's a good point. There is a plot in this, but it's really completely forgettable. The characters are completely forgettable. When you start, these are the 3 characters you get to choose from. You can choose from this dude, you can choose from girl with big boobs and perfect butt, or you can choose the tank. That's pretty much it. And the other thing I'll say too is that like unlocking new characters in this takes forever. On the other hand, Matt, I have played this like 20 hours. I played it for like 3 days, pretty much every spare moment I had. I played it for like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And the one thing I will say is it is very derivative and very generic, but it, as I said a minute ago, it is surprisingly competent. It is No better, for sure. But for the most part, no worse than all the other third-person game-as-a-service shooters that have come out. And a lot of those you have to pay for. And this is free. And I played it for 20 hours probably. I'm nowhere near finishing the campaign, but I'm finished. Because there was like this huge plot twist that they work you towards for a good like 12 hours. And then you get there and they're like, you know what? We're not going to resolve it just yet. We're going to kick that can on down the road. And that's when I quit playing. But I had already got 20 hours out of this game at that point. So 20 hours of gameplay for free, that's a pretty good equation generally.
Yeah, but you could also just go play Warframe.
Yeah, I never got into Warframe for some reason. I tried it a couple times.
This reminded me of Warframe in a lot of ways.
Because it steals a bunch of stuff from Warframe. Yeah. It also steals a ton of stuff from Destiny and Destiny 2 and every other game of this ilk. You can find little elements of it in the first Descendant for sure. But the story's just as generic as the rest of the game. You're humanity's last hope. There's this group of aliens called the Veilguard. What'd you say?
When am I not?
Yeah. It really is. Come on, man. Like, why can developers not think of more original plots than this? It's the same thing every time. You're humanity's last hope. Like, what'd you say?
Because they don't need to, I guess.
I guess. Like, I mean, to me, the story would have helped me. I just said, I quit playing it because of the story. It got to the point where they had built me up to this moment, and they completely bailed on it, and I quit. Almost in protest. I was like, screw you. You're not going to do that to me to drag me along and play this game even longer. But you play as humanity's last hope. You're these super soldiers called Descendants. Like, you have magical powers or whatever. You're some descendant of these superhumans from, like, eons ago.
It's very Destiny.
Yep.
It's just like, oh, we've resurrected you because...
we need your help because the Veilguard is attacking. And, like, the other problem I have, Matt, is that I played this on Xbox Series X for what reason I don't know, but I did. And this game crashes at almost every important cutscene. I had to go watch the cutscenes on YouTube because I had lost what was happening in the story. So I start the game, I get to this cutscene, it crashes with this male character. So I'm like, okay, I had to restart. You play like 20 minutes, it doesn't save anything, you have to start the game all over again. Second time, as you can see, I played as the girl. Because I'm like, okay, maybe there's something to do with the character. So I changed the graphical setting from performance to quality or whatever, and then I changed to play this the girl. And it made it through this cutscene, but then the next cutscene it crashed. So there are definitely some weird kind of triggering issues in this game with the cinematics. I don't know. But that's the basic premise. You're just this super soldier. You're trying to save humanity from these aliens that are invading your land called the Veilguard. And there's a lot more that goes into it, but it's really not worth discussing here. I would describe the tone of this game a cross between Halo and Evil Dead. So you have, like, these enemies that talk with these, like, voices that almost sound like they're little kids, but they're just a little bit more evil than they are. So it sounds like Evil Dead when some of the people are taken over by the Deadites and they have this almost baby demon voice. There's a lot of that in this game. Like, every skirmish you're in, all you hear are these different enemies that you're fighting, firing off their little quips or whatever in the demon baby voice. And it just kind of sets the tone for the whole game. It's like Destiny 2, but like a little darker and more evil, I guess is the best way I would put it. And it's got a taste of Halo in it, too. As far as, like, the grunt enemies and then, like, the classes of enemies, how you get to, like, the elites and blah, blah, blah. Repetitive enemies in this. Even at 20 hours, I was fighting the same damn enemies, Matt, that I was fighting in the first 2 hours that you played.
Nobody should be allowed to call anything Albion in games anymore.
Why do they keep calling it? It's like, how many more Albions are there going to be in video games? So now you're seeing the hub world. This hub world is almost carbon copy of Destiny. And it's annoying. First of all, there's so many people playing this game that you go to the hub world and it is a slideshow. It literally, the hub world runs at, like, I'm not exaggerating, 10 to 15 frames a second. It's that bad. And then you have to run around all these places to do all these different things. Here's the guy where you buy the weapons from. Next to him is the place where you upgrade the weapons. Next to that is this research area where you can give them resources and they'll build new stuff for you that you need to use to upgrade your weapons. And it's like these 6 different discrete locations in this area. And Matt, I'm just like, just give me an effing menu. I don't need this crap. I don't need to be running around in this slideshow. It's like, okay, if you want to create this world, fine. Create it. and let people use it if they want to, but just give me a menu if I want it. Like, I don't understand why they feel like they have to shoehorn you into running around this hub world for however many hours you end up playing this game. Like,
because that's what Destiny does.
Seriously, though, it's like it could not have a single original thought in its head. It's almost like it was blasphemy to try to improve on this subgenre in general.
God, I forgot they even had the flags.
Yeah,
that look like Destiny.
Yeah,
like, it's very obvious.
Yeah. And it's to your point earlier, we were talking about Star Wars Hunters, about how like all the meters go up after you finish. I mean, this game's the same way.
Oh, just that screen of all the guns on them just made me tired.
Yeah.
This is like
so you have your character level that happens automatically, and then you have this mastery level that for whatever reason it makes you go back to the hub to go to this very specific machine to increase the mastery level. It's like, why?
Those things look so Warframe.
What?
Like all these things.
So those are the bosses.
They're the bad guys. Yeah, the bosses. But like, it basically feels like Destiny versus Warframe.
Yeah.
Like in
with
terms of aesthetics.
with a touch of Halo, which Destiny is a touch of Halo anyway. So
oh, yeah.
It makes sense. But there's just so much crap. The creep of gear in this is insane. You're constantly
so dumb.
You're constantly getting new guns, and then not only do you have to have guns that you upgrade in this, you also have like this main gadget thing. What's it called?
The modules.
And then there's
there's modules for every single ability you have, and there's rarities on those, or there's caps to what. It's just like it's like as soon as you see all the upgrades, you're just like, oh.
Every gun has a set amount of points that you can use these modules to upgrade the guns with, and so it's like
so much noise.
It's this little puzzle that you figure out. You're like, oh, I only have 6 points left, but I have like 4 and 5 point modules left.
It's always very important when you go out into a firefight to leave the part of your chest that is where your heart is completely open and unarmored. It's very important.
Yeah, all of her outfits are the same. They all leave the cleavage, the chest exposed. Shocker. Yeah. But anyway, so you level up your main level, you level up the master ability, and then all this other stuff we've been talking about, how you upgrade the weapons, and then you have these other things. You have like this main module, and then these 5 attachments, and those can all be, and you're just constantly getting pieces for all of this that is just one level
like
higher.
Super incremental, but also like the DPS is like 11,000 DPS. Like the numbers just don't mean anything. It's just noise and clutter.
Oh, my DPS now is like 40-some thousand or whatever. It's like ridiculous. Like, yeah, it's like, couldn't it just be 40 instead of 40,000? Like,
it's so mobile gamey that it's very off-putting.
Yeah. But the one thing I really like about this, and granted a lot of other games of this type do this, is that there are so many players playing this game because it is free to play, that all the social parts of it work like a dream. So one thing I really like about this, and actually one thing about this that may be unique that I don't remember a lot of other games doing, is when you're out in the open world and you take on a mission, like you go up to these terminals basically and you hit the button and then the mission starts, other people can just wander into you trying to complete that mission and join in. And not only can they join in, if they join in and play with you without initiating anything or going to the terminal, is the game will designate they are now officially a part of the mission. And if you finish the mission, they get credit for finishing that mission, even if they just stumbled upon you doing it. Likewise, same for you. If you're running around the open world and you come across people trying to complete a mission, you can just jump in and start fighting with them. And at a certain point, the game deems you a part of their crew, and you will get credit for finishing that mission. And that, to me, is pretty cool. The other thing that's cool, too, is like when you start a mission, some specific missions in this, it will ask you, like, do you want to play it by yourself or do you want to play with other people? If you choose to play with other people, that matchmaking is, like, instantaneous, man. Within, like, a second, you got your crew of 3 other players there ready to play. The matchmaking is good as far as matching people that have similar abilities and levels and weapons and things like that. And just overall, this game works like a dream, man. Like, and again, a lot of it is because there's so many people playing that they have, tons of players in there to choose from to matchmake with. But like all the networking stuff, all the design of how the multiplayer and the co-op work great in this. It really is seamless. You can just plop down and play with this and just run around and accomplish stuff like crazy. You finish one mission, the next waypoint is never more than like 40 yards away. You can run to it. You can bring up the map by tapping up on the D-pad, and you go to the map, and you can warp anywhere you want to, and it shows you where all the missions are in that map. So you're like, oh, this area has 3 new missions for me to play. I'll zap in there and jump in and start. And you go in, You start at a little base, you basically replenish all your ammo and everything, you go out, next thing you know, you're playing the mission, 3 people join you, and then next thing you know, you're a team, and you're running all over the open world, completing missions together. Like, that part of the game is maybe better than any other game I've played of this type. The rest of the game is just so derivative, though. This is what we were talking about earlier about the modules, though. Let me just go back just a little bit here so you can see it.
Reactors.
Clip's too short. There it is. So basically, this screen, you use this for a ton of stuff. This is the character, but you also use this same screen for every weapon and all the other stuff in the game. And you see in the bottom there, those are the modules that you have available, and the top is where you assign them. So you can see in the top right, it says module capacity. It means you can only use 27 total points to buff your character with those modules. And you can see that heat antibody is worth 6 points. So if you assign that, plus the 3 you already have there, that's 9, which means you only have 18 points left to upgrade your character. And that's the way the upgrade system works for pretty much everything in the game. It's pretty self-explanatory, but you just end up wasting so much time on this stuff. It's like, again, the gear is always just one level higher than the thing that you have. So for a long time, like you can see it right here. Like, oh, I have level 1, now I have level 2 and 4. And eventually you start getting just tons of this crap. So you're constantly in the field, like having to stop and hit pause and try to like break down a bunch of junk in your inventory so you can pick up the new weapons and stuff that you're getting. It's just you spend a lot of time in menus or in the hub world in this game. And the other thing too is if like you pause, the game doesn't stop. So you're out in the open world. I have paused, ran into a building and hid in a corner and hit start to try to start like managing this stuff. And the enemies find me. Like, they can see through walls. They know where you are. So you have no reprieve in this game. Enemy AI, they pretty much just march straight at you for the most part. Mission objectives in this, there's like 5. I think this is my biggest complaint about this game. 80% of the missions in this game are defend this point. Here's a point. Defend it. It has a meter. Keep the enemies from attacking whatever it is. This point, this doohickey, this machine or whatever. And you just fight and defend this point until all the waves stop. And that is like 80% of the game. What is supposed to be the unique selling proposition of this game is the Colossus, the Colossi. So you fight these gigantic creatures. And for the most part, you do need teammates to do that. I don't know if you could fight most of them on your own. But they're supposed to have this like thing where you use you have a grapple hook in this game, and hardly anyone ever uses it. I mean, you use it when you're like running from like one mission to the next, and that's pretty much it. There are certain mission types in this that you have to use it to platform, and they suck. It's like the worst. I would end up just sitting there and waiting for somebody else in my squad to go through it and collect all the stuff. I just got frustrated with it. But you do have like a grapple hook, and the thing with the boss fights is you're supposed to be able to grapple the bosses and rip their armor off. But the bosses are so easy that nobody bothers. You just shoot it and it dies. And in general, this game in general is way too easy. If you play it with 3 other people, crank it up to the higher difficulty. If you play it on normal, which, to be fair, if you do want to find other people to play with, you kind of need to play it on normal. I try to play it on high, and the matchmaking slowed down drastically. But it is way too easy to play on normal. The enemies, I wouldn't call them sponges. And the combat is rewarding, but like you don't get headshots in this.
That was a very bad time to say that.
What?
I wouldn't call them sponges as you empty 2 clips into the one guy who's just like, no, I don't care.
But eventually you get weapons. So the other part of this game is that your weapons start to get these elemental buffs. So this character that I'm playing as right now, this girl, and there's 2 of them on screen at once, she is like a frost mage, basically. So she starts out with like being able to freeze enemies and things like that. But as you start playing, you start using those modules that we showed you a minute ago, you can start giving her like electricity and all this other stuff. And as it turns out, I think electricity is OP because pretty much everybody you run into in this game is using electricity. But my point I was getting at is that if you are really tuning your weapons, there's electricity you can see right there. My point is if you're tuning your weapons, this game is so easy. Most enemies go down with 1 shot. Literally, 1 shot, dead. And then, like, the elites and the bigger enemies, like, maybe you have to empty 1 clip into them. In the combat, it does feel rewarding. Like, there aren't headshots in this, though, which is one thing I definitely am not a fan of. It does this weird thing where, like, the whole body explodes instead of the head. So you still get that kind of satisfying feeling of, like, something exploding when you deliver that last shell or whatever. But it's not the head. It's not, like, headshots or whatever. And then, as I said, the enemies are repetitive. You end up fighting the same, like, 15 or 20 guys over and over again. You really have to change your strategy. Like I said, the mission objectives are pretty repetitive. The Colossus fights aren't what I thought they were going to be before I actually played the game. And just in general, the difficulty probably needs a little bit of a spike. But again, I played this game for 3 days, and I kept coming back. When I'd have a little bit of spare time, I'd boot it up. And again, I think part of that is how easy it is to keep making headway in this game. Like, I just stumbled across this mission, and in these missions, you kill enemies, they drop these things, you have to deliver them into that little machine or whatever. This is one of the more unique mission objectives in the game. But still, ultimately, you're just kind of defending this point against enemies, except after you kill the enemies, you pick up what they drop and put it into the machine. So the bulk of this game is a horde mode that you play cooperatively with other players. But I think my overarching feeling about after playing this game is, yeah, it's derivative, and it's like pretty much everything else on the market, but it's free. And a lot of those other games on the market, they're trying to charge you for. And Matt, after playing this game, like, I just don't know if I could ever rationalize paying for a game like this again. Because it's like, it does some things better than some of those games. It does some things worse. It's mostly just like them. But the bottom line is I played for 20 hours and never paid a penny for this. So I look at a game like Destiny 2, The Final Shape, where they're trying to charge me $50 to play their expansion. No. Why? It's no better than this. The story in Destiny 2 is also convoluted and goofy. And the writing is also weird and awkward. Like, just like this game is. And so I feel like games like this are like changing the third-person shooter genre into something that I'm no longer willing to pay for. Because I
can't really think of the last third-person shooter of this nature that somebody tried to charge for other than Destiny. It is bonker. I mean, you don't even need this game to exist for me not to buy the new Destiny expansion. Like that,
yeah.
I don't understand why they think that that's a good price for that. I guess there's people that are so invested they don't have a choice, really, but to keep grinding. But like, I mean, I've been out of Destiny for years.
Yeah, we both have.
Yeah, I don't know. This just seems to be sort of how this genre is now. I guess there's Gears of War, but that's going to be Game Pass.
But I'm wondering though, like, would I pay for a Gears game now? Like,
I mean, I wouldn't, but I've been in the wouldn't pay for a Gears game boat since 3.
Right.
So
yeah.
I'm not really the litmus test for that. And Gears isn't really the same thing as this. It's a slightly different take on this.
It has its own sort of gameplay style and loop. There's no cover shooting in this, but. Mm-hmm. But playing games like this that are surprisingly proficient, that are free, it's like, why would I ever pay for like another sci-fi third-person shooter that may do one little thing a little better or different than a game like the first Descendant? So, again, the plot's crappy, but the plots are crappy in all these games. The ones that you pay for, the plots are crappy. So I just struggle to see, it's like, where does this genre go now? Like,
it just does this over.
It does this over and over. I think you're right. I think that's what happens. Which, is that a good thing for us? Probably.
I could not possibly care less.
Because the games are free, so it's not like you're paying.
Yeah, if I want to play them, I can play them. I generally don't. I go play Warframe once in a while. That's about it. Yeah, like I would be more willing to play Destiny if the stuff wasn't obscenely expensive for what it is, and if they hadn't removed campaign content.
Yeah.
Like the fact that they remove story content from that game forever is like, I'm out.
And the monetization in this isn't skeevy. Like, we were talking about...
It seems pretty standard.
We were talking about Star Wars Hunters a minute ago, and one thing I forgot to mention when I reviewed it here on the show was that Star Wars Hunters is skeevy. Mm. Did you notice? I don't know if you played enough matches, but every third or fourth match, when you come back, it puts you on a screen where you buy stuff. And if you just tap A to go to the next menu, it takes you literally to where one more click, you pay for something. So if you tap it twice, you might actually end up paying for something if you have your credit card in there that you didn't want to pay for. This game doesn't do any of that. Like, this game, it never prompted me to pay for anything. It has a battle pass and like the whole thing along the bottom of the screen. It shows you like what you can unlock and all that kind of stuff. But it never asked me for money. It never just sent me to like the store or like after like a session. It's like, hey, you just spent 5 hours playing this game for free. Want to give us $1 or $2 for a hat? Like, it never did any of that. It literally just let me play for like 20 hours uninterrupted, unmolested. So this game isn't great. I'm not delusional. I'm not going to say that it's great, but it's just as good as pretty much every other game like this that's out there. and it's free. So if you're into these types of games, I absolutely recommend playing this game. It is a pretty big install. I think it was 30 some gigs.
I think it's bigger than that.
Was it bigger than that?
On PC, I don't know what it was on.
Yeah,
console.
it's not like a little 10 gig game like some of these games are. It will take up some space on your hard drive or whatever. But if you like these types of games, this is just as good as the rest of them. And that's a pretty low bar to clear, sadly, in this day and age.
Yeah.
But it's free. It's hard for me to rationalize telling anyone to pay for a game like this now when there are games of this quality out there that they can play for dozens of hours without spending a penny. And this is why you're seeing so much chatter about this game out on the internet, on social media. That's why no matter what mission I played, Matt, no matter how far in the game I was, if I was like, you know what, I want to play with other people, they were there like that. That's why. Because this is a pretty good third-person cooperative shooter that you don't have to spend a penny on. So I actually do recommend the first Descendant. If they were trying to charge me $30 or $40 for it, I'd say hell no. But for free, if you're into this type of game, or maybe you haven't played a bunch of them and you just want to dip your toe into the water, I would recommend it. I actually had a good bit of fun playing it. But again, with all the caveats and the shortcomings that I've mentioned while we've been discussing it. But I guess I would say I like it more than I thought I was going to. Even once I started playing it, I was like, oh, this is just like all the rest. But eventually, I kind of got sucked in and got hooked on it and kept playing it. So it's one of those games. It's like, I just feel like, Matt, we are in this place where we're talking about things that we've never talked about doing this job before. Which is like, there are these free games now that are essentially destroying specific markets. And that's never been a thing. But we're getting to that place now where these free games are just as quality and feature-filled and content-filled as games that other publishers are asking us to pay money for. So, I mean, Nexon, I'm sure, spent a ton of money developing this game. I mean, I might guess $40, $50 million or whatever. And they said that on launch day they had problems with the servers. They're gone now, by the way. This thing runs like butter now. But on launch day, they had problems with the servers because people were spending so much money, they said. Nexon said. Whether that's true or not, who knows? But that's the official line from Nexon. But I feel like we've crossed the Rubicon here, where you really have to take a look at each individual game and try to figure out if they're worth spending money on when you have these other options that are free. We're about to talk about Zenless Zone Zero, an action RPG. And
I think the bigger problem is that they're not worth any time.
Yeah. It goes back to what we were saying earlier about, like, is it worth my time? Mm-hmm. At this point in my life, is it worth my time?
At the very least, like, if you're going to say, like, oh, well, which play something, like, I'd say Warframe.
Yeah.
Because Warframe is going to be there for years and years and years
and years. That's a good point.
This
game could
might
go
be gone
away.
in a year.
It could be. You're
like,
right.
I'm not going to put any time into this because it might disappear any minute.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't be able to play it anymore, and all the shit I grinded for is not going to be there anymore, and it's a waste of my fucking time. Warframe is probably not going away without a fair amount of warning.
Yeah. It is very hard to tell which of these games are going to live and survive. Mm-hmm. Because, again, this game is packed with players. I mean, just packed. Like, too many, honestly. Like, they need to figure out their server allocation a little better.
Yeah. Let's see what it looks like around Thanksgiving.
Right. That's what I was getting at. Is, like, you play games like this, you're like, wow, look at how many people are playing this game and enjoying it, and then a month later, they're all gone.
Star Wars Hunters is like that, too. Or it's like, wow, just every match is boom, boom, but you're in, no waiting for anything. Like, Let's see what that looks like in November. Let's see what that looks like at the end of August when everyone's playing Outlaws.
Or what it looks like next year, a year from now. Like, that's even a crazier thing to try to guess. So, you're right. When you choose to play a game like this, you are kind of looking, again, that's something we haven't considered before until like recently. It's like, do you jump into a game, you consider now, is it going to live past 3 months or is it going to die? It's really hard to tell.
I mean, some of us who played MMOs back in the day already started to do that with every online game.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Like, I learned my lesson from Earth and Beyond.
Mm-hmm.
I was super into that game, and then they shut it down and I lost all my stuff. And I've never looked at something that wasn't like World of Warcraft or EverQuest. I never, like I was like on the edge of getting super into Shadowbane. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, you know what? This is not going to last.
Yeah.
It's not worth doing all this to get into it. The only other MMO I really got into to any great degree was City of Heroes.
Yeah.
And that also sort of crashed and burned out of nowhere.
Which I didn't think it was going to.
No.
Because everybody I knew was playing it.
You wouldn't have thought.
Yeah.
But
literally, everyone I knew was playing it.
There was some kind of shenanigans around that, as I
remember.
It was unexpected that
something
happened.
Yeah.
Something changed hands somewhere. But I just don't trust that, really.
I think this subgenre is popular for these games because there's no competitive element to it. So I said that this game isn't skeevy with like monetization, but there is an option. So we were talking earlier about how there was those 4 pieces of gear that you're constantly collecting in the game. Well, you can buy with real money an extra slot of that gear, which helps you get through the campaign, but you're not competing with anybody, so it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. This is another game, too, I should add, that eventually you get to a point. There are certain missions where they're just like a gauntlet that you go through, and they'll take you to a menu, and you choose whether you want to play it by yourself or with others. If you choose to play it with others, it's like it's a race. And I hate this about all these games, where it's like players are so OP and so good that they just run through. And like I feel like I'm just trying to keep up with them. And I may shoot my gun like 3 times before we finish the mission, because they have like they've set their traversal stuff so that they're faster than everybody, and they're always they kill everything with one shot. So you're just kind of like running along collecting the drops that are left behind. That happened a lot in this game. And a lot of these games are like this, where you get OP characters who maybe spent money, you know, in the store to make them faster or make them kill things with one shot. And you go to play cooperatively with them, and they just leave you in the dust, and you're just like running behind them 100 yards, just picking up the scraps of what they left behind. So there's an element of that in this game as well. I don't know how you fix that. It's been a problem in pretty much every game of this type that I've ever played. So I don't know what the fix is for that, but this game also has it. But again, I've been pleasantly surprised by this game. It's not going to win any Game of the Year awards. It's wouldn't even win probably Best Third-Person Shooter of the Year. But it hooked me enough that I spent a good solid 3 days playing it. And I think if you're into these type of games, you'll probably spend at least a day or 2 playing it. And again, it's completely free, and it won't even like try to skeeve you to get you to spend money. So, has anyone in chat been playing it, Matt? Have you noticed?
Didn't seem like it.
No, I'm surprised because again, this game is huge.
The chat seems to be way more into Zenless zones. Is.
Why am I not surprised? Well, you're probably not going to be happy with how I feel about Zenless Zone 0, but we're about to get to that. Emperor Gestal 84, thank you for Twitch Prime. Breaking news: Microsoft is sending emails in various regions announcing a price increase to Game Pass from Pacrius. So how much more, Pacrius? What's the increase rate? Rosencrantz, thank you for subscribing at Tier 1. Yeah, it doesn't seem like anyone's playing this game. But the whole rest of the world is. You guys are the only ones who aren't playing it. But anyway, now you know all about it. Look, if you're into these games, I do recommend giving it a go. I think that if you like third-person shooters, you will like this game. You'll get at least a few days of play out of it before you grow tired of it like I did, and you decide to move on. So, do you have any questions about it, Matt?
Nope.
Well, I mean, how long did you end up playing it total?
Like an hour.
Yeah. So you just played a few missions and then put it down. And truth be told, for the most part, you play a few missions, you pretty much get the gist of this game.
Yeah.
There are parts that are better, they get better or worse as you keep playing, but you have a pretty good idea generally of what you're getting into. So there you go. That is the first Descendant, and it's probably the last time we'll talk about it here on GameFace. Next up, we're going to talk about the game y'all been chatting about in a chat, Zenless Zone 0, the next game from Hoyoverse, which is a studio behind Honkai Star Rail and Genshin Impact, 2 other free-to-play RPGs that have been gigantic hits. Zenless Zone 0 has only been out for a handful of days at this point. It already has like 50 million players. It's already made $20 million. Mm-hmm. This is an action RPG instead of a turn-based RPG. It seems so. Honkai Star Rail's turn-based, right?
Maybe.
I think
never
it is.
played
I know Genshin Impact is action. I think Honkai is turn-based. And now this is back to action RPG. Mm-hmm. This game takes place in yet another post-apocalyptic futuristic haven. This is also the last stand for humanity. It's the same plot as the first Descendant. You play as a brother and sister team. You either are the brother or the sister. They make you choose at the beginning of the game. And you run this business where you are basically proxies, where you send your agents out on missions, and then you tag along on the mission in these little like bear-like creatures that have that basically act as your camera out in the field as a proxy, so you can watch what your team members are doing. But this is kind of the same exact plot. Like, you're in this little city that seems to be set in like the 90s, Matt.
Yeah, it's
because you have a video. Your business takes place in a video rental store.
yeah,
All the
there's
TVs
still
are CRTs.
Yeah.
But it's also very futuristic. So it's, I guess, is it cyberpunk maybe?
No, not. I mean, there's a little cyberpunk because they're up against the system or whatever. But like, it feels like a Dreamcast game.
Yeah.
It just feels like it's set in that weird Jet Set Radio sort of era where
90s
it was
future,
like late 90s futurism sort of thing.
It's just very weird. And that's basically the setup for it. And so you have these agents that work for you. You get jobs. You decide which agents to send out for each job. Each job you go on, you choose a 3-person party to go on the job for you. Unlike the first Descendant, it's much easier to unlock new characters in this. In the first hour, you have 5 characters to choose from to send out on your missions. And I would say too that the characters in this are all pretty different. They all kind of function different, play different. They all have their own special abilities. But it is like a hack and slash action RPG, but they're these self-contained areas. So you'll go to this area, you'll fight a couple enemies. It'll say you finished this area. Then you'll run to the next little section, fight a couple enemies, and then the whole game is structured by this kind of board game mechanic that are called, what is it called? The Hollows or something?
Hollow Consumer Hollow. I can't remember. I don't know what the names of anything is in this stupid ass game.
It's this goofy board game that you go to where you have an avatar that goes around the board, and then if you run into an enemy on the board, you have to actually fight the enemies.
A little hack and slash fight, and then you can pick up treasure chests. It's a board game. And that's kind of the structure. It's aggressively weird, this game.
Yeah.
It's taking stuff from old Dreamcast games like Jet Set Radio and Outrigger. It's taking stuff from Persona. It's sort of like the first Descendant in that it is indistinguishable from the games it is ripping off.
Yeah.
It is a weird soup of everything that you've played before put together in arguably a different configuration, but everything is very familiar.
The way I would describe this game in general is that it's a game that's been built on psychological profiles of 12-year-old ADHD preteen boys. It's
I would say it's broader than that. I'd say it's just based on this whole generation that grew up with anime,
right?
In general,
yeah.
But that's not boys.
Yeah, there are girls that are watching it, yeah, but
it's mostly girls.
I'm speaking from my personal experience with my nephews and nieces. So I talked before about how my 11-year-old nephew came and visited with me a year ago. In fact, it's a year ago today he was here, and how he flipped me out with the stuff that he was into. I guarantee this game was made for him. It is there cannot be a moment of downtime where there's not a flashy graphic or an anime pose or a spinning gun or a flashy thing that flies across the screen.
Well, they don't even because early on I was did they run out of budget? Is that why everything switches to kind of the comic strip format periodically? And then I'm no, it's because you can't have the same delivery method for more than 5 minutes.
Yeah, they can't do it.
It literally, I don't think the cutscenes become manga voice acted manga because they don't have the budget to do full cutscenes.
It's a stylistic choice.
I think they just no, you have to switch the presentation up so the kids pay attention.
Yes, I'm telling you, this game is made for that nephew. He loves anime. Yeah. His attention span is literally 3 seconds at a time, and this game is like that. It's even the cutscenes, it never stays on a shot for more than 3 freaking seconds. It
does move. I give it.
Oh,
give it that. Early on, I was is this gonna be a long intro to how all these things? No, you just run over here, hit the thing, open the thing. We're playing another. Now it's another kind of gameplay. Now it's a different kind of gameplay. Now you do that. Now you play this.
Now you're doing Persona stuff in this neighborhood.
More than 5 minutes, and now it's very. It's frenetic in a way that I didn't really expect. It's frenetic even for Hoyover. I didn't play Star Rail, but I did play enough Genshin Impact. Genshin Impact has a much more leisurely approach to things. It's almost
overwhelming.
This is an ADHD simulator.
It really is, man. It's overwhelming. It's just every moment there's something going on, flashing music, people talking, anime flourish.
I will say it kind of solved, because one of the things that these sort of mission-driven games, one of their flaws for me is always that every time you you end the mission or go back to the selection screen, you sort of give me a chance to sort of think about what I'm doing and stop doing it. This doesn't really. This kind of solves that problem by constantly. It's like a constant motion thing that like
machine gun fire
doesn't really let you stop and take a breath for very long.
The slowest moments are when you're in the town and you're walking around talking to NPCs and stuff. But even that, that has so
much visual clutter that you don't think about it as being downtime.
Also, the town is dinky. So you can run from one NPC to the other in like two. Again, it feels like this whole game is built in 3-second elements. Like, it's really crazy. I've never played a game like this before. Honestly,
it's kind of a masterclass in how to like distill all the psychological elements of how these games in this business model functions into something that just delivers pure strained. It's
like I said, they built it on the psychological profile of 12-year-old ADHD kids. But this one also has the jiggle,
right?
Well, so that gets the 13-year-olds, and it gets it a teen rating also. By the way,
I mean that's like PS2 era shit. Like it's like physics are better than that now, and just about every respect. But they're not. They don't care.
That matters. They're like
and almost all the characters are that. Like the boobs in this game are out of control. Like they like half the characters in the unlocks are like these like big mommy figures with giant boobs, and the others are all like preteen girls that probably shouldn't be in a game I'm playing.
With the other girls with big boobs. Yeah. It's a strange game, but it did feel like
and there's a couple furries.
Yeah.
And one girl with a shark tail who constantly tells you to not touch the shark tail.
Right.
And I'm like, I wasn't going to touch the shark tail. I don't know what is going on here.
Ferrodol says Nicole's character screen has a certain angle. Yes,
Indeed it does.
The whole game is like that, though.
The whole game is a certain angle. Yes.
Seriously, every shot is considered, and it's not. There's no shot that stays on for more than 3 seconds. Like the plot doesn't make any freaking sense. Like these two right here, we're badasses. Oh, but now we're not badasses. Let's throw a smoke bomb and leave, so we can do our little anime flourish and spin the gun around our finger. Like it's bonkers.
And there's a weird element of like, I actually give him credit for this, where like. The world is extremely strange, but none of the characters act like it's strange.
No.
They all know the score and what's happening, and you have to kind of piece together what's going on by context clues of how they're reacting and talking about the other things that are happening. And that's called showing, not telling.
Yeah.
Like that's actually they actually did that pretty well here. Like I give them credit there.
I also think the combat's pretty good.
Combat is simplistic but fun enough.
It is a little different.
It does rely on character switching too much.
That's all it is. It's all character switching.
That's how you extend the combos, which is funny because I was trying to think like what game did I just play that was entirely centered around that, and I finally figured it out. It was Warriors Orochi 3.
Right.
I played the old Muso game from Koei. And that game in particular, you had a team of 3, and to extend the combos, you had to basically constantly switch between characters. You could get 1,000+ hit combos by doing that.
Yeah.
You can't do that in this because the switching, at least the useful switching, you can switch whenever you want, but switching like that is determined by meters that fill as you're attacking. But it reminded me of that. I was like, okay, so it's doing that, and so you never get a chance to really sit down and play this. You got a team of, I think you can do 3 characters at once once you get past the tutorials. And everybody's got their own supers, and it's all interchangeable, and it doesn't really matter which one you're using, except if you prefer to use which one. It's bonkers.
It is
There's
bonkers.
range versus melee, but like you can mix them and match them as much as you want. There's no... It's at least early on. There's no real limitation to it. Like
now,
you never really feel at a disadvantage depending on which type of character you're using.
You can just choose which one you like. Now, eventually, it does get to a point where you can start carrying on combos between more than the 3. It'll actually let you loop back around and go to the same character twice eventually, so you can keep the combos going a little bit longer. But there's also a little bit of nuance to the combat in this. So if you time switching characters with when you're getting attacked, you do this like counter attack.
Yeah, it's a parry system basically.
Yeah. And it's really cool. Like the whole thing, switching the characters as you're fighting, and what you'll see in the B-roll as we get the full 3 characters, it really starts to open up. And it's really cool and it's dynamic. The problem is that it no matter how cool it is, it gets old very fast because every character only really has like one linking move. So the guy with the gun, he does the same thing every time. If you link him in, so when you get to the meter to a certain point, you'll see that meter appear on the bottom that tells you to choose another character. if you choose the guy with the gun, he does the same thing every time. If you choose the girl with the suitcase, she does the same thing every time. You choose the girl with the sword, she does the same thing every time. So for the first half hour or so, it's awesome. You're like, holy crap, this game's insane. The combat's nuts. I never played anything like this. And then it starts to get really repetitive. Now, to remedy that, they keep giving you new characters. This game, unlike the first Descendant, just keeps giving you new characters pretty much constantly.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's a gacha game, so the gimmick isn't like getting the new characters, it's getting the character you want.
right. Yeah.
That's the real trick.
Yeah.
And you have ratings of different characters. You have better versions of characters, upgrades to the characters. Like they get you by the gacha.
They grabbed me by the gotcha. But yeah, you can level them up, like in between sorties, you can go and level up the characters and increase their abilities, but it doesn't really change what they do, it just changes the damage output for the most part. But each character does has its own weapon and has its own special, and that does separate them, but again, once you play with that new character for 30 minutes or so, you've pretty much milked it dry, and then you're hoping that they give you another one that you're interested in to play as. So that's kind of how the game works. Did you have fun playing it, Matt? I almost looked at it as like a research opportunity.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I don't get the point. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I wouldn't mind playing this if it was like, because again, like I said, it reminded kind of like a Dreamcast game. I wish it was a Dreamcast game because then it would be an actual game and not like a fucking capsule toy machine grift.
Yeah.
You know? Like the
enemies are repetitive. They all kind of look the same.
It's a very generic game, and yet it's also something that you've never really seen before. It's a strange beast.
I've never seen a game made very specifically for a very specific sort of person and age group like this one is. It's definitely not made for me. I can tell you that much.
I mean, I would say Roblox is in the same category.
Yeah, probably. But there aren't many. This is definitely made for like that 10 to like 14-year-old who loves anime and
I don't know, man. Like, this is A, it's teen rated, and B, like, you're asking a lot more microtransactions than you're probably going to get out of a 10-year-old.
Did you? I didn't feel like it was too bad. Like I was.
If you want the characters you want, you need to buy a lot of polychrome for money,
gotcha.
Because that's what you use to buy the spins, basically. And the gacha is not generous. You can pay for 10 gacha things. You'll get maybe one character that you already have that you can fuse with something, and then a bunch of like the orbs or whatever, the module things that you plug into each character, and like certain
You can basically craft those.
Yeah, well, certain characters can use them and certain ones can't, or you can use them all, but if a character can't do a certain thing or does a different thing, it won't take full advantage of that particular orb. They tend to give you enough different orbs to power every character you have, but it's going to cost you a fair amount of resources to power them all up equally. So I basically, because the first one you power up properly is the girl with a sword, I basically stuck with her and everybody else was supplementing.
We noticed they give you a character with big boobs really early.
Yeah, well, Nicole is right there. And then I got the wolf guy, I think, as my first unlock thing. And then the maid girl was
with
like
the
a
crazy
promo.
saw weapon.
Yeah, she was a promo, I think, because like day one player, like early first week players or something. It was through a email you got.
Yeah.
And then the first unlock was like I think the wolf guy, and then you can go into this training mode and test out all the characters that aren't unlocked yet. And you do get polychrome, like a little like 20 for that, which is like you do all of them, you probably get one spin or something. I think, and they all pretty much play very similarly. The milk mommy with the puppets seem to be kind of the damage powerhouse from what I played, because she's the only character that I could find, because you can, when you fill up a certain meter, you can hit the Y button to do an extra power attack that is unrelated to the combo system or with the other characters. And I found that because she sends the puppets out to do her standard attacks, she can do the Y attack, the triangle attack, while that's happening, and she's the only one who can, I think, double up on that.
Yeah,
so,
I think you're right. Yeah.
She's like she seemed to be the best character from my initial
I used her a
look.
lot. Yeah.
But yeah, that's just sort of what I saw. But beyond that, once you see all the different, it's very mobile gamey in terms of all the different resources you have to collect this and this, the W module, and this.
It's confusing.
And it's just
I
like,
thought.
oh, I'm just so tired already.
Yeah. And now you're seeing the Persona
Fucking just charge
stuff.
me actual money to upgrade.
Yeah.
Like, what do I want? I want them to be equal to what I want the curve to be smooth. I want the difficulty curve to move like a straight line.
Yeah.
Like a normal game that a real person would play.
Yeah.
And just give me that battle pass. Where's that?
Yeah. And we're seeing now there are Persona elements in this where there's a whole day and night cycle and you need to do things at certain times. Like you're running your video rental business becomes a part of the game, and talking to all the merchants out in the town. That's a certain element of it. But again, it's very simple, and they make sure that you never do it for very long before there's an icon that pops up that says go back to the computer because you have another job to go fight. So the pacing of this game is like too much for me anyway.
I kind of don't dislike the world and the characters for the most part. It's just like I wish they were in a real game and not a bar filling simulator.
Yeah. And the combat feels good, plays good, but there's just not enough there. It gets very boring very quickly. So,
want to talk about easy.
Yeah, it is easy. Yeah.
First Descendant's got nothing on this.
This
thing.
is very easy. Yeah. Even the bosses are easy.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever died playing this actually.
I never even came close. I don't think I even know where the life bar is.
Yeah. Where is it? I don't know either.
I want to say it's the little.
That's funny.
It's not blue. It's like it's in the corner.
Yeah. I don't remember it at all.
I don't know.
Yeah. But this game is also free to play. It's available for PC, both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, and mobile, I believe. Mm-hmm. And it's free, so it won't cost you anything. I think everybody will get at least a couple hours of entertainment out of this without paying any money. And this game also didn't feel like too bad to me. Like, I felt like they gave me enough characters and interesting characters enough that I didn't feel like I wanted to buy them. So, and they weren't constantly like shoving in my face, buy this character for X amount of money, buy this, buy that. They kind of let you just play it at your own pace and decide if you want to spend money on your own, which is all you can really ask from these types of games because otherwise they don't make any money. And they've already made $20 million on this in the first few days. So it's going to be a cash cow.
Yeah, I think definitely. I don't think 50 million people have played the first Descendant.
No, probably not. Although, who knows? I mean, probably not, though.
I can't find a number. Apparently, the concurrent players on First Descent right now are 200,000 on Steam. I cannot find a concurrent player number for this, just the number of downloads.
Yeah.
Because it's not on Steam.
Yeah.
I don't know. This feels like it's probably the winner of the week in terms of, like, just mind share.
The kids are going to play this for sure more than they play the first Descendant. There's no doubt about it. Business says it's not on Steam. That's why. So it's one of those PC games where they're not working with Steam.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's not on Steam.
Cinetech says, this game reminds me of Scarlet Nexus, but inserting tons of gotcha stuff and making combat way more easy. Yeah. I mean, the style is similar. I mean, to me, it looks like Hi-Fi Rush. Like, that's what it looks like to me.
Scarlet Nexus is a little more brown.
Yeah.
Scarlet Nexus is kind of dull.
Yeah. Threadzilla says, Game Pass increases just announced. What are they? What are the increases? How much did they go up? Ferrodall says, I don't know if I'd say this didn't cost me anything. It may have cost me my sanity. I'll say that, man. Like, it did feel like tiring playing this game because it's just non-stop. Just bam, 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 bam. Sound effects and flashes and noise. And, like, again, you can clearly see who it's designed for. Yeah, if you guys know the price increases on Game Pass, that would be great if we could get it into the show before we finish the show today. Sanitech says Persona vibe is a bit too much. You don't get near enough time to get to know people like you do in Persona. I mean, it's just that's the definition of a vibe.
Yeah,
it's got the Persona vibe, but it's not just like Persona. She fights with puppets. People reminded us of the one girl. Anything else about this? You guys were talking about it so much before we started talking about it, and now you're not saying anything. Maybe we need to scroll all the way back to the beginning of the chat to find what you guys were saying. Vincent says, apparently the price increases to Game Pass are mostly just currency fluctuations. You guys get us like all worked up and it's over nothing.
Me, I am worked up. I don't. There it is. Ultimate goes to $20 a month.
The main thing is that console Game Pass, not Ultimate, is getting retired. Replaced by a new tier with no day one games. Wow. Okay, that's kind of a big deal.
It doesn't apply to me.
Wow. That's kind of a big deal. A Game Pass tier without the day one games. So then when does it get them? Like, what's the timing now? Is it like you got to wait 6 months and then they show up on that tier? Or do you never get the first party games in that tier? That's pretty nuts, honestly. All tiers price increased. Rest in peace, day ones. No, I mean, it doesn't mean, it just means you got to pay for Game Pass Ultimate to get day one. Ultimate to $20 USD. No more core. New standard tier without day one.
So it's either Ultimate or Standard?
I guess. And how much is Standard now if it doesn't have day one?
It looks like 15 a month.
Wow. Core still exists, Vincent. We're getting all these mixed signals here. Okay, Vincent, I'm going to put it on you to track down the truth on this stuff because I know you're good at it. And you just give us one post that explains everything. And then we'll deliver verdicts on it. Because what we're doing right now is ruining the show. So anyway, there you go. That's Zenless Zone Zero. It's free. It's available for PC, both PlayStations, and mobile. I don't think most people our age will enjoy it, Matt.
I think it depends what you grew up with.
Yeah.
If people are in anime, probably like, if you like Persona, you'll probably like this.
Yeah.
At least it'll visually appeal to you, I guess. I don't know. Again, we're back to is it worth your finite lifespan? No.
To mean for someone our age?
No. Especially because there's a bunch of other stuff. I wouldn't even say it's an age thing. It has nothing to do with age. It has to do with the fact that like there's other games that maybe they don't do the same thing, but like I'd rather go play Jet Set Radio again, or I'd rather go play Persona if you want that kind of vibe, except actually delved into it in some way. Scarlet Nexus does the hand-to-hand combat better with a similar kind of anime style. Mm-hmm. This doesn't do anything better than anything. Unlike First Descendant, which has its kind of ups and downs in terms of comparison to other things in the genre. I don't think this game does anything particularly well.
The combat system's interesting, but it's just not enough.
What I say, it's not interesting. It's the same thing over and over again.
The system is interesting. They just don't give you enough content within the system. Like each character needs more than that same move. If they had 4 or 5 different ones, then it might.
That's exactly what I mean. They don't.
Right.
That's it. It's just you hit R1 and you switch to the character and they do a thing and you keep going. It's 2 buttons and a trigger button. Like there's nothing there, and unless that fully opens up later on, which it really doesn't indicate.
I played
that it does.
a good bit further than you, and it doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's that's the biggest argument that it's more aimed at kids is how simplistic the combat system is.
Yeah.
Even
though it's teen rated.
Yeah, I mean, you could get away with a combat system on the level of something like Nier Automata or Scarlet Nexus with this cast. Like that cast is equipped to do that.
Yeah.
Like but it doesn't.
I think the universe and everything is fine.
Yeah.
I don't really have any problem with it. It's just the way the presentation is all put together, and to our point, the combat just isn't deep enough ultimately. Let's see. Still waiting for that big post from Vincent. If you can just put it all in one post, Vincent, and hit enter, that would be awesome. Okay. It's time to move on to our New York Sneaker Society Sneaker of the Week. But before we do, here's a word from our awesome sponsor. What's up, everyone? Shane here, and one thing you may not realize about me is that I am a total sneakerhead. That's right. I've been collecting Nike sneakers since the early 90s. My favorites are Air Max 95 and Air Max 97. Now, one thing that's different about me from your typical sneakerhead is that I actually wear the sneakers. And because of that, they can get dirty. And that is where New York Sneaker Society comes in. Using their advanced shoe cleaning products, I turned an old pair of Nikes that looked like this into this. With their cleaning products, your sneaker life can go from a year to 5 or more. I know that. I have shoes that are like 30 years old that I still wear because I've cleaned them. You can also lower your carbon footprint, by keeping your kicks looking fresh. For my daily drivers, I also appreciate New York Sneaker Society's Refresh Spray to keep them smelling great and staying crisp. Head to nysneakersociety.co/sifted to clean your shoes like a pro at home and get 10% off your order. That's right, that's nysneakersociety.co/sifted for 10% off. Now, I mentioned this in this week's episode of Ask Shane Anything, completely unsolicited, and just giving you my honest opinion about New York Sneaker Society's products. Definitely make sure whatever package you buy, you get the wipes. They're just like these. They almost look like, you remember those old acne wipes that they used to have in the 80s where you'd buy like a jar and you just take them off or whatever? It's kind of the same thing, but they're all separately wrapped. Literally, those things are a lifesaver. I just have them sitting on the counter in my bathroom, and before I go out at night, if my shoes are starting to get a little dusty or a little dirty, I just grab one of those wipes, and literally in 60 seconds, those shoes look brand new again. So again, don't forget to use the right URL, because not only do you get 10% off, you get 15% off if you use nysneakersociety.co/sifted. And again, make sure whatever package that you buy in there, it has the wipes, because they are, once you get your shoes clean, those wipes will keep them clean. Literally, keep them looking new, spending a minute of your time before you go out. If you have a big date or something like that, want to make sure you're looking sharp. I highly recommend the wipes. They are a great product. In fact, everything New York Sneaker Society makes is a great product. They sent me everything that they had. I have tried it all. I have loved it all. So don't be afraid to buy some of the bigger packages there, because the stuff in there all matters. It makes a big difference. So thanks again to New York Sneaker Society. One of the things that we do to celebrate that sponsorship is every week we pick a sneaker of the week, a smaller game that you guys are paying attention to that on the site. And I just basically look at all the metrics on the site. What are some of the smaller indie-ish games that are getting a lot of views, a lot of comments, and things like that? And this week, it was very clear that the game that you guys were all over is a game called Neva. It is the next game from the team behind Grease, Gris. Now, Grease was one of those games that looked really awesome, and then it came out and people played it, and I think it reviewed way below what like people kind of expected it to be. Grease was a very emotional game, and that's exactly how they described this game. Well, you can see right there, a bird dies, fertilizes the ground. This game is about this girl finding the flowers that were fertilized by the dead bird, and then she becomes friends with this wolf pup. And they go on an adventure together, her and the wolf pup. Now, I can already tell you there's going to be some horrible things that happen to either the wolf pup or the wolf mom that's going to jerk the heartstrings while playing this game. But this is the game that you guys paid the most attention to as far as like indie games, because there were previews from the press. And I'll say this too, the previews for this have been far more positive than what we saw for the reviews from Grease. Now again, they're previews, and that can change over time, and maybe they play the final game and they don't like it quite as much. But the previews for this have been pretty much glowing so far. I don't think anybody can argue with the art style in this game. It's very unique. Nothing else looks like it. Grease looked like this.
Yeah.
It's their house style pretty much. But you can already see the mama dies, and then you take in the baby, and off on an adventure you go. And I think you guys can kind of start connecting the dots on what might ultimately happen there. The other thing that's cool about this game is the world changes dynamically as you play. So as you're playing through the game, the world starts decaying around you. So one of your goals is, the big goal is to reach your goal before the world completely goes to crap. And it is kind of a cooperative game. Like, you don't play with other humans, but it's all about the girl and the pup working together to solve puzzles. So it's basically like a puzzle adventure for the most part. But again, it's called Neva, N-E-V-A. It's coming to PC, Switch, both PlayStations, and Xbox Series. We don't have a release date yet, but it shouldn't be too far away because, as we just said, the press is doing previews of it, and usually that's a good sign that the release is right around the corner. So again, our sneaker of the week for episode 394 is Neva for PC, Switch, both PlayStations, and Xbox Series. And with that, it's time to move on to our last topic of GameFace 394. And Matt, I'm surprised you didn't play it. We talked about it last week.
I keep forgetting about it.
Kunitsu-Gami, Path of the Goddess. There is a demo of the game up now. We talked about it last week. We were covering Capcom's latest event. It was one of the big games in that. We were talking about how the hell does this thing play? We don't know. Well, the big announcement from Capcom in that event was that there was a demo live, and it is still live. You can go play it for yourself if you want to. I did play it, and now I know exactly what this game is, Matt. And I like it. It is I would say your question last week was, how much can you make up for your lack of tower defense skills with your hack and slash skills? And I'm here to tell you, a lot. In fact, the hack and slash in this is way more important than the units. Like, the units, I kind of just use for cleanup. So let me rewind here quickly for people who don't know about this game already. This game is a cross between a tower defense game and a hack and slash. And it plays from this isometric perspective. And the objective is to get this goddess, this female whatever, from one gate to the next. This game is played in sections. So you have a gate, a section of a map with a pathway, and then another gate. And basically what you want to do is get the goddess from one gate to the next. Now, basically what happens is, and you're seeing it right now, you have to carve the spirit path. So you walk up to the goddess, you hit B, and then you start drawing the path that you want her to walk. But here's the thing, like, it's very easy to, listen, I'm just learning here for the first time. So the first time you do it, you're like, okay, well, I want her to go from this gate to the next gate. So you create the path all the way to the gate. Here's the thing, though. A big part of this game is figuring out how far the goddess can make it before the enemies start piling through the gate. And the enemies, obviously, you need to kill to protect the goddess. So here, Matt, I made a huge mistake. I brought the goddess all the way to the gate. Now I only have 10 feet of buffer space to defend her before the monsters will get to her. And so this was my first time. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I was like, oh my God, I've made a huge mistake. How can I defend her? I only have 10 feet before they get to her and they start attacking her again. So as you start playing it, you start to learn, like, okay, you look at how far the distance is between a gate, you start to understand how long it takes her to walk. She is really slow. Like, she does her little animations and stuff, and she just crawls along. The more you play it, the better idea you start to get of how fast she is, and you start getting better at drawing that path and making sure you don't draw it all the way up to the gate, where if you don't make it in time, the enemies come through and she's pretty much guaranteed to die because there's no way to send her back. Once she gets to that point, you can't say, go back, go back. There's no way to do that. So one thing you start doing as you start getting good at it is if she's walking along that path, you can run up to her and hit B and she'll stop. And that's key. Because otherwise, the closer you get her to the gate and the enemies start pouring through, it's very hard to keep her alive. And so that's a big part of the strategy in this game, is learning how fast she moves, kind of understanding the cadence of the gate and how often the enemies are going to pile through it, and figuring out whether you can get her to that gate so she can go through it like you're seeing right now before more enemies show up. And that's kind of the crux of the game. The tower defense stuff, so you draw the path, and then there are enemies located on the sides, and a lot of them are caught up in what's called like corruption, basically. And there's objects in the world too that are caught in corruption. You do this little dance with your fan and it removes the corruption from both like inanimate objects and the units. Once you've freed units from the corruption, then you can control them and tell them to do whatever you want. And as I got better at the game, basically what you do is you get your archers, you get your axe guys, you put the axes right in front of the gate, and then you put the archers off the beaten path, off to the sides, right next to the gate, and they're just laying into the enemies as they pour through the gate. And then it's up to you to do the cleanup with the hack and slash. Now, the hack and slash in this is a little weird because you don't have like total control over it. So you tap on PlayStation the square button to do your basic attacks, and then the triangle does this special attack, but it's like a flourish. So once you tap that triangle button, the soldier goes into this sword flourish, and you can't stop it. So a lot of it is, again, learning the timing of the monsters, getting the monsters into groups so that when you do the flourish, you can take them all out at once with your flourish. So again, to answer your question, Matt, the hack and slash in this is very powerful. Like, you can have your archer standing there shooting these things with arrows, and it takes like 5 or 6 arrows to kill most of the enemies, or you can just walk up and hack them once and kill it. So to your question, yeah, the hack and slash in this matters probably a lot more than the tower defense stuff with the units, but at the same time, it's not like you have complete control over the hacking. There's still a little bit of a strategy involved to it. And that's pretty much the crux of the game. After you finish certain sections of it, you'll go to this screen where you can go and you can level up the units. When I finished the demo, there's like 3 levels in the demo. I think I had 4 different unit types or whatever. And in between rounds, you can level them up, which I'm doing right here. And it gives them, like, the axe guy does more damage with his axe, or the archers can shoot their arrows farther. All that stuff matters, and it honestly makes a big difference. Like, I leveled up the axe guy, and in the next level, they just murder people. So you definitely feel the difference as you level up your units. And, I mean, generally, it's like a tower defense game cleverly disguised as a Capcom hack and slash. But at the end of it all, the strategy, the way you think about how to play it, it almost is all tower defense. Figuring out, like, how fast do the units move? How much damage can my units do? How fast do the enemies move? How often are they going to come through the gate? Can I make it to the gate before they come through? Because there was one time, Matt, where I got like 2 virtual feet from the gate and the enemy started pouring through. And there's just no way. I just had to fail it and start all over again. And if you do fail, you go back and start all the way back at the beginning again, have to go through building your units and assigning your units. The other cool thing about this is out in the field, you can change the units. So you're seeing it right now. You can change, like, I just changed that guy from, like, an archer to an axe guy. So you can, on the fly, if, like, you start a round and you're like, oh man, I don't have anywhere near enough archers, because eventually they start sending flying enemies at you and only archers can take them out. You're like, oh, I don't have enough archers. You can run up to one of your axe guys and turn him into an archer right away. So there's a lot of flexibility in how you do it. There's a lot of strategy involved in setting it up. So during the day, you go and you take all the tarnish or the corruption off of the units and off of the inanimate objects. And then at nightfall, that's when the enemies start pouring through the gates. And that's when you have to defend her and try to get her to the gate. And that's pretty much the gameplay loop and the flow of the game. Will I still enjoy this 20 hours in? I don't know. A lot of that will depend on the units and how quickly they give you new units and how much they make you master them. I'm not a guy who plays tower defense and wants to play the same thing like 20 times over. I want to play it like 3 or 4 times, figure it out, and go on to the next one. There are some tower defense games where they're like, you know what? Here's a choke point. You're going to have to play this same mission 20 times before you figure out the one little quirk, the one unit you need to have at that very specific position to basically come out on top. So there's a lot of that in this, but I do feel like the hack and slash, being able to take control of things and put them in your own hands, does give it its own little twist and its unique twist on things. I enjoyed it. Maybe not as much as I thought. I do feel like there's a little bit of like a barrier between the player and the tower defense stuff. I almost feel like some of the other stuff is frivolous and isn't needed. Again, this is coming from someone who really likes tower defense and has played a ton of tower defense games. I do feel like there's a little bit of a barrier between me getting to what I want to do in the game. But maybe for people who aren't big tower defense fans, they like this sort of compromise where you can take control of your one unit. And you can also, by the way, there's boss fights. Here's the first boss fight in the game. And they are like damage sponges. This fight goes on for like 30-some minutes. It's cut out here in the B-roll down to like a couple minutes or whatever. But it took a long time to beat this boss. You just don't do that much damage. It's also pretty easy to die. You could probably take 5 or 6 hits from rank and file enemies before you're dead. So you do kind of have to watch and keep your distance and like kind of let your units go in and do the close-up stuff, and then you just kind of swoop in, deliver a couple blows, and then get out of the way and let them attack your minions again. And then the minions you can see there also have special abilities that you can assign and trigger. So there is a good bit of depth to this. But again, I do hope it's not one of those tower defense games where it gets to a point where it's like, oh, this is hard as balls, and there's one very specific thing you need to learn how to do. And until you figure it out, you're going to bang your head against the wall on this mission.
Given it's not free to play, I would imagine that won't happen.
You would think not. But yeah, also to Matt's point, this game does cost money. But like I said, there's a demo out there right now. You can play it if you want to without any commitment. This is available for PC, both PlayStations, and both Xboxes. No Switch version, although feels like you could maybe get this to run on the Switch, honestly.
I think you'd have to turn down the particles a lot.
Yeah, but otherwise you could probably make it work. But I had fun with it. I wouldn't say I'm disappointed in it. Maybe a little bit. I thought maybe it might be a little bit more of a straightforward tower defense game, and it's not. But some people may like it for that don't like tower defense games. So
I would definitely prefer it leans hack and slash over tower defense.
And it does. Like it's weighted way more heavily towards
but
that.
I can see what you mean with the combos where like you got to finish that. There's no canceling. You have to finish that combo whether you like it or not.
He does his animation. You can control him. He does this like swirl thing. You can control him lightly as he's doing that. But that's why I said you want to get the enemies grouped into a group before you trigger your big flourish. And then you can just kind of like swirl the analog stick in circles, and then he'll just kind of go in the circle and like wipe everybody out. And again, everything's pretty much one-hit kill when you're talking about the rank and file enemies in the game. And as you can see, there's wildlife out in the world where you can like pick up the corruption. Here I am removing the corruption from one of the inanimate objects. You can see like sometimes you have to do that to a certain number of elements in the world before the actual mission will kick off. Like in this one, I think there's like 5 or something. Yeah, they just said 2 out of 5 there. So there's sometimes during the daytime, there's other things you have to satisfy other than getting your units assigned and put in place where you want them and getting them, whether you want them to be an axe wielder or an archer or whatever. There's a little bit of that, but then there's also environmental stuff that you have to do as far as like purifying the area. And there's shrines you have to purify and things like that. It all ties into how things ultimately play out when the shit hits the fan at nighttime. So there you go. That's Kunitsu-Gami, Path of the Goddess, again, coming to PC, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and Xbox One.
Really does take her sweet time there.
Yeah. And there's a demo up now, as I said, for pretty much all platforms. And also, it will be a day one game on Game Pass, which will segue nicely into Vincent, who I see has now supplied us with exactly what we need to figure out all the changes to Game Pass. So let me take this lower third down, and let's bring up Vincent's post. Here it is. Core is now $75 for a year, still $10 a month. Standard includes MP, is that multiplayer?
Yeah.
And the back catalog, because don't forget that we lost Xbox Live a while ago to Game Pass Core. So it matters that you still get the multiplayer. But no day one games. That's for $15 a month. It's not available yet. Game Pass for consoles is being retired for new people. Old people can remain on that plan, which would be me, I guess, with day one still for the foreseeable future. Okay, that's cool. PC Game Pass still exists with day ones, but increasing in price to $12 a month. Ultimate includes everything up to $20 a month, and the price increase start on July 10th for new customers and September 12th for existing customers. Thank you, Vincent. Great job, man. So there you go. What do you think about all that, Matt?
I don't really.
Didn't they just increase Game Pass's price like 6 months ago?
I don't think so.
I thought it went from like 14 to 16 or something, like a very incremental price. No?
I don't think so.
When they launched Core, maybe? I thought they jacked up the price a little bit.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a while. $20 a month for Game Pass, man. That's a lot.
It's more.
It's getting to that point where
it's still. I mean, it depends how many games you're putting out per year. It's still better than buying. It's 4 games a year basically.
Yeah.
Depending on what the yearly rate is.
Mm-hmm. I mean, 200, 240. It's $240 a year. Mm-hmm. That's.
I'm guessing it's going to be a slight break.
3 or 4 games
for a year, yearly subscription.
Yeah, I think it said $75 for a year for Core. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah,
it was 70. It was 15. It went from 15 to 17 a year ago. Yeah, I thought so. But that was incremental. Like, this is a $4 a month increase. That is pretty much the price of what Xbox Live used to cost. Period. Mm-hmm. And that's just the increase now.
I'm curious what defines day one. Like when day one becomes back catalog.
Right. Like when do the people who don't get day one, when do they get those games? Like never? Mm-hmm. Or do they wait 18 months, 2 years, 6 months? Anybody know? Did any of that information come out yet? Vincent says we don't know yet. Okay. Thank you, Vincent, for doing that, man. Appreciate it. But $20 a month, man, that's a lot, dude, for a service.
Yeah, I mean...
Netflix is what now? Is Netflix 20 yet?
I think Netflix is 17.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, obviously, Microsoft feels like it has to do it.
I mean, it depends, because it's like, well, there's a sunk cost to it, because you got to subscribe to something to get the multiplayer functionality.
Yep.
So you might as well pay $125 more a year to get, 4 free games. 4 games you'd pay $60 for otherwise. Anything beyond that pays for itself.
So if Core is gone, what's the cheapest way you can get just Xbox Live now?
Core's not gone. It's $75 a year.
$10 a month. That's $120. I mean, you used to get Xbox Live Gold for $60 a year.
Well, no, it's $75 a year.
Right. You used
$10 a month.
Yeah, you used to get Xbox Live Gold for a year for $60. So they've increased that a little bit.
But it's like, again, I'm curious what the ultimate year price is.
Yeah.
Because it's almost certainly not.
It can't be
$240.
Yeah, you would think not anyway. Vincent says some games available with Xbox Game Pass Ultimate on day one will not be immediately available with Xbox Game Pass Standard. It may be added to the library at a future date. So no definitive information about that at all.
Wonder how much of that is Fallout from Starfield.
It's possible. It is possible. Yep. Fire Native says it's called nickel and diming. A football saying in football you get 3 to 5 yards per play and you get first downs and walk down the field. And in other things it's just $5 per month, then 10, then 15, then 20. Yeah. Pacria says, in all fairness, PlayStation Plus has no day one releases. It's true. Xbox still has day one releases, but at a higher price.
Is that why those football plays are called nickel and dime?
No.
What are they called?
That's the number of players in the secondary, basically. Yeah. So nickel, and actually dime is not related to that, but nickel came from having 5 defensive backs. And then dime, they're like, well, let's just call it dime because now there's 6 defensive backs or whatever, because there wasn't a fun word for that or whatever.
And you've already got a quarterback, so you might as well get your dime back.
Yep. That's funny. Only a non-sports person, I think, would pick up on that. I never would have connected those dots. That's funny. Okay, so there you go. That's your update on Xbox Game Pass. Not good news, I would add. It'll be interesting to see how that affects their subscribers. Like, I don't know, man.
Remember what I said earlier today about how, like, I don't even know what to speculate anymore on what they're doing?
Yeah.
Ditto.
There it is. Yep. Okay. And with that, before we go, it's time for... That's right, Sifters. It's time for Name That Game, where I show you 5 screenshots from a video game, and you try to guess the name of the game before this guy, Matt Keil. He is stiff competition. You're going to need luck. Couple things before we get going. If you don't play PC games, do not play. The winner of this wins a free PC game. So if you're not going to play PC games, you're not going to give it to somebody, and you're just going to waste a code, please do not play. If you've already won this year, do not play. You can only win one every calendar year. Next January, it turns over. You can start playing again. If you've won this year, you can't play. You can't win again. So please do not play. And then finally, the chat goes into slow mode. You can only put in 1 chat entry every 60 seconds. So the best idea is to not just spam the chat with random game titles. You're probably going to be wrong. And then when you do know what it is, you're going to go to type, and it's not going to let you. So I would argue only type into the chat if you have a pretty good idea of what the game is. Last week, you guys got it on the first image. My goal this week is to get past at least the first image. I think we might make it to the third. We'll see. Are you ready, Matt?
Mm-hmm.
Are you all ready? Let me pull up the sound effects here so I can get our ticking clock ready to go. And here we go. Ready for Name That Game in 3, 2, 1, go.
Does look familiar. Has a Shadow of the Colossus look to it.
Not Shadow of the Colossus. Not Banana Milkshake. Not Elden Ring, Veritas. You can see I blew that screenshot up a little bit there. It's all pixelated. Forza Motorsport, no. Nier Automata, no. Gravity Rush, no. I think I scare people from guessing. Dragon Age 2, no. Tiny Tina, no. Any other guesses before we move on? Shadow and Cody, no, he already guessed Shadow of the Colossus. That's no. Heavenly Sword, no. People bring up Heavenly Sword pretty frequent in this. It's interesting. The Last Guardian, no. All right. It looks like we made it past the first one, which is all I asked.
I'm just going to start naming like the most obscure things you would never pick. El Shaddai.
No.
Voice of the Metatron.
No. Final Fantasy 15, no. From Ultimate Villain.
No, it looks too good to be Final Fantasy 15.
Okay, here we go. Here's the second image. In 3, 2, 1, go. That's a pretty good clue. That's a really good clue. Vanquish, no. Good guess, though.
Too human.
No, not Too Human. Project Gotham Racing 3, no. I don't know how I would know if it was 3 instead of 2.
Yeah,
I typically won't do that to you guys. Bayonetta, no. Twilight Princess, no. 2 Bayonettas. I see why. They think it's her foot.
No, that's not her foot.
Yeah, but it's not. Last Remnant, no. Super Mario Odyssey, no. Divinity Original Sin 2, no. Any more guesses before we move on? All right, that looks like that's it. All right, we're going to make it to the third one like I thought. And here it is. In 3, 2, 1, go. That's a really good hint. Mario Kart 8, no. I hope Mario Kart 9 looks like that, though. God of War 3, no.
It does look familiar. I can't quite place it.
Oh, everyone's guessing God of War 3. No, it's not. Body Harvest. I was wondering when you were going to guess Body Harvest, but no, it's not it. Binary Domain. No.
Wow.
That's a pretty good guess, though.
That's some kind of Soul Calibur look to it.
It does, yeah. But it's not Soul Calibur. Devil May Cry 5. No. God of War 2. No. Armored Core 4 answer. No. Hybrid Heaven 2. That never happened, so... I wish it would, though. I would play Hybrid Heaven 2. Definitely not Zenless Zone Zero. Too much brown. Not enough color. Street Fighter Alpha Warrior's Dreams. No. Definitely not. Wow. Okay. Looks like we may make it to the fourth one. Any guesses? Going in 3, 2, 1. Okay. On to the fourth screenshot. Here it is in 3, 2, 1. Go. Someone's going to get it from this one, I would think. Xenoblade 1, no. I never give hints this obvious, except for last week. I basically gave the whole game away last week. And luckily Cinetype won. Too Human, no. Matt actually guessed that already, Mitchell Ness. Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne, no. Bony Legs 2, no. That's Shane the video game, Bony Legs 2.
You are bionic.
Yeah.
Those legs.
At this point, I am. I've had so many knee surgeries. Mass Effect 3, no. Xenosaga, no. Guardians of the Galaxy, no. Wow, we may make it to the fifth image for one of the few times ever. I don't feel like I did an overcorrection after last week. These clues I feel like are pretty obvious. MGS 4, no. Bayonetta 3, no. Anime RPG game. No.
It does have a Scarlet Nexus tint to it, but
Yeah.
it doesn't look good enough to be
It's
that.
not Scarlet Nexus. No. Okay, we're going to the last image. You guys got to get it from this one. In 3, 2, 1, go. Come on, people. You got to get it from that one. Prince of Persia 2008, no. Hybrid Heaven 3, no.
Yeah, I don't recognize that.
No?
Some kind of, not Time Splitters.
Nope. Wow. I don't think anyone's going to get it. Ninja Gaiden, no. Soul Calibur 5, no. Final Fantasy 12, no. Shadowrun, no. Wow. No one's going to get it? Crazy. This doesn't happen very often. Thief, no. I did everything but show you his face. Forspoken, no. Dishonored 2, no. Lost Odyssey, no. Another Lost Odyssey, no.
Shadow Man.
No. Wow. I think I did it. I think I stumped you guys finally after all this time. Immortal, no. Any last guesses? All right, that's it. Nobody won, which means that I won. Final Fantasy 14, no. Prey, no. Hitman 3, no. Devil May Cry, no. Dishonored, Mr. Lantern got it. That is it. Now, so it's, yeah. Someone ended up getting it, unfortunately. So I was a little preemptive with my congratulatory applause. It is DMC, Devil May Cry. So here's, Matt, you decide. Who wins? Is it
Mr. Lantern
Fried
7.
or Mr. Lantern?
Mr. Lantern 7.
Okay.
The name of that game is DMC.
Yeah, DMC Devil May Cry. Here you go. Here's your round of applause. Congratulations.
I honestly, I was, Barry Lomax is exactly what I'm like. I don't remember that game looking that bad.
Yeah. Well, don't forget, some of the screenshots get blown up a little bit.
Right, but even that, like the geometry on it is just so primitive.
Pretty simple, yeah. Yeah, and they did do like a remaster of that, I think, an HD remaster or something.
There was some kind of update to it
Yeah.
at one point.
But anyway, congratulations. Get at me any way you can. You can DM me. You can DM us here on Twitch. You can DM me on Twitter. I'm at Dinfire. DM me on SIFTD. I'm at Shane. You can DM SIFTD on Twitter, at SIFTD Games. just get at us. One thing I will say is you're probably going to need a Steam account because I need to gift you a game. So maybe make sure you have that hooked up if you don't have it already. So, yeah, it was DMC Devil May Cry. I almost made it through all 5, but that's the ideal game to me. If you guys get it on the last one, that's how I tune it. I hope that happens every time. It never will.
Ninja Theory, yeah.
Yeah, yep.
So you're on the right track with Heavenly Sword for once.
Well, someone also said Devil May Cry 5, which was pretty close, but not quite. So, unfortunately, not.
What was that? How many? Was it 4, then this, then 5?
Yes, I believe so. Or was it 3 DMC?
No, 3, 4, because 4 was when G4 was on, because that's when we did a whole feedback about that where we came up with the tits on a bridge gag.
Oh. Tits on a bridge
that was
gag.
That was how Abby personified that one girl with no underwear in the game. She's like, then tits on a bridge shows up and we have to have this fucking conversation. And I'm like, yeah.
It's hilarious.
That was one of those moments where I'm just like, I'm really glad that Steven Spielberg listens to this podcast because we've exposed him to some things here.
All right, that's going to do it for GameFace 394. Thanks to all you guys who hung out in chat. Cody S. Carter, thanks for getting in Twitch Prime at the end there. Appreciate it, brother. And in fact, please, everybody, just right now, whatever you're doing, wherever you are, whether you're a patron, whether you're on SIFTD.net, whether you're watching this on YouTube, everybody right now, go and give us Twitch Prime. Please. We need it. It costs you nothing if you're an Amazon Prime subscriber. We need it. Our Patreon is way down. And in fact, what I'm really going to do is beg you to become a patron. We need patrons. We've been losing patrons. We've been bleeding patrons for months now. We're getting to a really bad place here. We really need it. Go to patreon.com/sifted. That's SIFTD. And again, if you don't have any money and you can't help us there, you can help us out with Twitch Prime, or you can just like the show, review the show on wherever you're listening to it on the podcast services. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of you guys and girls who watch or listen to this show. We should not be having to scrape by. It's just ridiculous. So,
but if you do have money.
What?
But if you do have money.
Yeah.
We know.
Yeah, that's right. Go to patreon.com/sifted, man. If you like the show, you want to see the show continue, that's what you got to do. You got to help us. We got bills to pay. That's just all there is to it. We're like you. We have to pay car payments and our rent and our bills and everything else.
See what I charge him for studio lease.
Exactly, man. He's killing me here. So anyway, go to patreon.com/sifted. Please do it. We really need the help at our Patreon. It is the lowest it has ever been by a significant margin, and we're holding on by a thread here. This is not hyperbole. Please go and do it. We'd really appreciate it. So we'll see you guys next Tuesday for another episode. Next week we'll have Flintlock, I think.
That's the 18th.
Is it the 18th?
Yeah.
And what's the date for next week's show? Today's
Probably.
the 9th, right? We won't miss it by a couple days, I guess.
So we'll miss it. It's not yet.
It'll be close. Maybe if I can get review code. We'll see if we can work it out. But again, thanks to everybody who shows up at twitch.tv/siftedgames. We're here every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Show up, hang out with the chat, correct us when we make mistakes. You guys are awesome for it. We appreciate it very much. Have yourselves a great week full of great games. We'll see you next Tuesday. GameFace is up and out.